it's such a tale of woe. Not too long ago, this village was a golden scene of hope. Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace. Restore our Gloria to live forever. Bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order. I am the light bringer. Fellow warriors, I ask you, should my campaign come to an end, there's way more to avenge. Oh, 15 million souls living in this realm without much hope. Not too long ago, this kingdom was a golden state of hope. Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace. Restore our Gloria to live forever. Bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order. I am the light bringer. will crumble under all of my force will fall. Let's make them crawl. And when we finally meet the king, there will be no ghost for him. We shall end it all.
The era of metal has begun. And metal shall prevail. For we know what they have done. 5 legends of our realm who sought to follow the path of their dark musings. But they did not know what they had summoned. Pentakill. To these creatures, there is but one thing left to do. Heavy metal.
hours of pain. Vi sörger, vi sörger. Cold and empty, lifeless remains. Vi sörger, vi sörger. Fields of the fallen, blood-washed in rain. This cannot be all that will be. So you have torn this world apart. You came for our suffering.
变化永远指引着两条路，向后一步是固步自封，泯然众人；向前一步是君子豹变，奇闻未也。战场与对手在变，登峰与涅槃成为了悬于所有队伍头顶的利剑。迈向登峰，鏖战远远没有结束；跌入涅槃，更要经受锤炼之苦。即使是晨光熹微，也要踏上自己坚信的骑士之路。命运与心境在变，有人改换门屏，为的是在既定的轨道里改写故事；有人破釜沉舟，求的是在别人的剧本里成为变量；有人一路坦途，天赋异禀，惊艳世人，要的是境随心转，不变应万变。起点与终点在变，拼命追赶奔赴的远方，可能是猎场；整装待发的起点，可能是别人的梦想。季后赛只是新的起跑线，发令枪响，尘埃未定，莫问归途。
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LPL 2024 Summer Playoffs. It is time to get into our top 4 teams. Many teams have battled it out to be here, but only 4 could remain. And we enter our first matchup at the very top of the bracket. My name is Munchables. I'm joined by Nymera. We have the honor of bringing you BLG versus Weibo.
We're at the point in the competition now where we do get some Guardian Angels involved too. We are into that double elimination, so for those of you who want to see more of these teams, don't worry, we're going to see an awful lot beyond at this point. There is such a long road in the LPL playoffs. We've had, 6 or so games series up until this point, then the extra 3 from the Knights rivals before that point. And we still have plenty more to go as well. So the LPL, this is just the place which keeps on giving these best of 5s.
It certainly is. Let's take a look at that bracket, that road so far, and what remains on it. As we've had a couple of attempted miracle runs, NIP on the top side thwarted by Weibo. FPX were trying to make a bit of a run, but AL made short work of that as well. And there we have it. BLG versus Weibo, LNG versus Top Esports. Those will be our top 4 teams. That will be our 4 teams in the double elimination bracket. We'll start today with BLG versus Weibo. And I think Weibo have done an incredible job to get this far. They have leveled up in a way that I don't think many people expected this year, but they're up against the very best in BLG today.
BLG, they did finish first. We will talk about whether that was deserved, potentially at points beyond this. But Weibo are very much a team which had fooled us into thinking they were not a very good team, and then made us realize partway through summer, oh my god, Weibo actually have some great players on their roster.
I think they might have fooled themselves as well, to be honest. I'm not sure they believed they were a great team earlier on in the year either. It was, it's been a tough year for Weibo, but hey, I mean, when it comes to summer playoffs, that's when it matters the most, and it feels like Weibo have turned it on. Let's talk BLG though to start us off, because this is a roster, I mean, this is a world-beating roster, right? This is a super team, no two ways about it. Knight coming on over to replace Yagao. But importantly, for anyone that's missed this summer split, Shun hadn't necessarily been performing on this roster. Wei has been brought into the roster as the new jungler to try and change BLG's fortunes.
And when they made that change, I initially was very, very worried, and I wasn't convinced that this would change things, because I think that the way that BLG had made their successes before was through Shun teaming up with this bot lane to make these really finely crafted bot lane dives work out. But credit to Wei. Wei has been very stable. He has been great on stuff like the Lilia. You see that he's got a ton of the AP junglers in there, amongst other things too. But he has been actually very consistent. It's been hard to get under his skin, and I think that BLG have benefited, I think, in a lot of ways from just having that stability and knowing that at least Wei will be a rock in the river.
Yeah, We'll see how Wei is going to perform now it comes to the best of fives. And, you know, BLG, it's not been the cleanest split from them, but they're still our spring champions. And we'll see if they can bring that championship level today. They're up against Weibo, though, a team that have surprised at the end of this year, because this is a roster that, on paper, should be incredible. And for most of the year, we've been wondering what on earth was going on with this team. Xiaohu's back. Tarzan is in some of the best form maybe of his entire career. He's looking absolutely incredible. The rest of the team stepping up as well. It does feel like Weibo are finally clicking.
There have been a couple of teams here in the LPL which kept us guessing up until the final moment, but then you look at Weibo and the way that they played throughout the Ascension group and suddenly down to playoffs as well. Yeah, Weibo have turned it on when it matters. They are now into the double elimination. They are now very much in a position where they can qualify for Worlds as well, despite us looking at their entire year thinking, oh, it's just another Weibo year, consistently inconsistent. Haha, we have a good joke at that one. But no, this whole team has managed to slot together in ways which I didn't think was possible at the start of this summer anyway. They did, of course, bring in changes to both top and jungle as well. They had ZDZ and Xiaohao at the start of the year, and I think that particularly Tarzan, as you were saying, is on just incredible form. And I think that does now bring us into this conversation of both of these junglers being replacements for those teams, but being so critical to the way that they've developed their style and developed through summer. That is exactly where my eyes go to first in terms of an analytical viewpoint.
Absolutely. And I feel like, you know, Tarzan trying to make an argument for the best jungler in the league right now, which it's kind of poetic, because the other best jungler in the league is probably Tien, who also has been known to fumble at the last hurdle as well. So we'll see how that story continues later in playoffs. But BLG versus Weibo, I mean, statistically, BLG looking real good.
They are, but I think this is where sometimes I feel like numbers, I know that people say numbers don't lie to you, but they lie by omission sometimes. If you look at the games which BLG have played, a lot of the time they leave you sweating up until they get this one decisive fight and things kind of run over at that point. This hasn't been the domestic domination we have known for this team. They've had a couple of domestic records broken in between last summer and then this spring in terms of the regular season, but they've definitely had some microscopes that put well and truly over this team. Weibo, I do think they have some options here. BLG, though, I think they are still, you know, an incredible team. They are now into best of fives. You can never write this team off.
You certainly cannot, but let's take a look at one of the most important matchups here today. It's the mid lane. Knight versus Xiaohu, two total legends of the role here in the mid lane. And I just want to quickly mention as well that they are currently tied in terms of LPL titles. The only difference is Xiaohu's won 3 MSIs, whereas Knight's only got the 1. I will say, though, Knight is currently on a 4-title streak. He's doing pretty hot recently.
He's got a 4-beat in the LPL, switch between, you know, the JDG teams just before this one and then coming into what happened here. Honestly, Knight has been so powerful for this roster. And yeah, this guy has been so, you know, impressive historically. And now Xiaohu on the other side, he, on the other side of this, hasn't really succeeded in that same level. No. Like, not recently. He did, of course, historically, but you look at his current form and how he was playing over the course of this year, we had real worries about this guy. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, earlier in the year, I genuinely thought we could be witnessing the end of Xiaohu's career this year. That's the level of drop that we saw from him, which I don't say lightly. I'm a big fan of Xiaohu. I think anyone who's loved the LPL for a long time is understandably a big enjoyer of Xiaohu, but he seems to have turned it around. He's up against one of the very best, not just in the league, maybe even in the world, on the stage today. So we'll see if he can keep that form up. But I love the way that he kind of changed tack as well. One of the standout games to me was when he brought out Twisted Fate mid, and it felt like he didn't necessarily have that big of a game mechanically, but he just basically forewent the mid lane and said, okay, I'm going to play for the rest of my team. And there was almost like a mental switch there, and it feels like since then it's been powerful.
And I think that's something in terms of that mental switch and the way that you approach the game in a philosophical sense, if you really want to get deep about it, has happened to both of these teams. You know, BLG, when they were playing around Shun, they were very, very much about going for these bot lane dives and having this explosive early game and just kind of accelerating the game with these fast, decisive plays. I think Weibo, they have always maintained a sense of that kind of snappy, decisive play, but I think that Tarzan has brought an extra string to their bow as well, where actually Tarzan can be that early game leader before the mid game comes through, where they can go into this wider map style that they've kind of cultivated over the last few years. I think when you change a player like the jungler, you still can retain a lot of the hallmarks of those play styles, but they do bring huge decision-making shifts, shot-calling shifts, and the way that you approach your draft as well, particularly in such a carry diverse meta in the jungle. Both of these teams have had to go through that, I guess, philosophical shift and saying, okay, different person at the helm in the jungle, they are the core of macro in any good team, really, in modern League of Legends. How is that going to affect the teams, and how can we build off of that?
And that's been the story of the year, how these two teams have been able to build and rebuild, honestly, with these new players joining the rosters. I mean, Way especially kind of changing the fortunes for BLG. Honestly, when you think about this year for BLG, the fact that they still got first seed with some of the games that they had, like the fact that they felt like they needed to sub the jungler out and get a new jungler in, they still got first seed. Like, I do feel there's an extent to which I'm like, BLG have struggled this summer, but really, have they? I mean, they're still in first. Like, how big are these struggles? Are we just overreacting?
But this is where this series can brush away a lot of worries for this team. Much in the same way that Weibo, their placement stage, maybe we don't talk about that. What's really funny about that is if you look at Group D now and you look at NIP and Anyone's Legend of Weibo making it to the stage as they did, Group D somehow seems really stacked in its way. That doesn't change the fact that Weibo were not good in placements, folks.
It did not
they
look
were really not good.
At the time.
it was not stacked at the time. Those teams had to grow into the competition, and I think that BLG are also in a period where they can pull off a similar thing to Weibo. You forget about those placements and you perform better in the Rumble stage, and then you perform better in playoffs after that. BLG, we don't have to care about what happened to get them to this point if they play well today. Best of fives are a completely different game, and BLG will really want to sink their teeth into this one.
Well, BLG going to be the first ones to step out onto that stage today, and I feel like this is a roster that you can never really quite know what to expect because, you know, the summer may not have been quite as clean, and I feel like the team has not necessarily been as disciplined as in the past, but I think that's because Knight joined this roster. I've watched Knight for a lot of years. This man loves a happy game, and I never really count the regular season towards playoffs with a roster like this because you just know that they can turn it on when they need to, and I certainly hope to see that today against Weibo. There's Way stepping out, the man that has changed the fortunes for this team and is hoping to be the answer for BLG in terms of conquering this whole year.
BLG, they are very much a team which has sprang up to dominance in the last 2 years as well, and I think that's where I'd like to go next with this conversation, because we talked about some of the players, some of the recent form of the story of this year. If we expand that lens a little bit larger, BLG in spring, their first playoffs matchup really, that really drew a lot of eyes to them back in spring 2023, was against Weibo. And this is a Weibo that was touted as a super team. This is the Weibo that, of course, had Casa on that lineup as well. BLG 3-0'd them, dashed the super team hopes, and they set up their own story. They made an MSI finals after making the spring finals, and of course became a household name, really, in the recent era of LPL. Of course, that year also ended with Weibo knocking BLG out of the 2023 World Championships doing a 5-game banger series in the semi-finals. I don't think when it comes to LPL rivalries, a lot of people think about Weibo versus BLG, but you put a couple of these big series together and you realize that, yes, BLG, JDG very much overshadowed this. Well, JDG are gone now. Weibo were one of those other teams which really stood in BLG's way.
And it goes even deeper than that, because it's not just about the organizations. It's about players that have been on the same teams winning trophies together. When you think back to 2022, you think back to that RNG lineup, Bin, Wei, Xiaohu winning MSI together. And Bin obviously replaced. Guess who he was replaced by? Breathe, who's now also on this Weibo roster alongside Xiaohu. Kind of a 2v2 in terms of RNG players there. And I mean, who knows how it's going to go down today. Weibo bringing out their green jackets to step out onto the stage today. And like there on your screen, I think a player that has kind of gone under the radar a little bit with this roster, but I think has been one of the most consistent players on the roster pretty much all year. Like, when you think about the real struggles for Weibo, to me, Light was the standout.
I think Light last year was more explosive, and I think people seeing the fact that he's not exploding teamfights on a Aphelios 1v9 in late game has maybe influenced people's opinions of him. But I think you're completely right. Light has been the safe pair of hands on this roster, which has struggled to have those safe pair of hands. He's not necessarily going to be the person which takes over the game every single time. I think that as Ezreal can do that, that's definitely a pick which I'm looking forward to seeing today. I'm assuming that'll get picked through by them almost inevitably at some point. But when you look at this entire roster and you look at how versatile in both play and form they can be, they can have occasionally those blips of consistent inconsistency which we know them for. Light is the person which does escape that.
He certainly does. He always has been a very consistent late game AD carry. But the question is, what happens when you're up against Elkanon? You know, this is a bot lane that know how to put pressure on in the laning phase. Same for Knight, same for Bin. It does feel like the kind of MO for BLG is putting pressure on. And once they take control of the game, it's very difficult to find a way back in. But Weibo have been a team that don't bow to pressure in the early game. We saw that against NIP. We saw Weibo be the ones to really put that early game pressure down, especially in the jungle matchup, like really punishing Leyen on his Nidalee. And perhaps that could be a strategy today against Wei. However, the Nidalee main of Shun is not in the server, so the exact same strat won't work.
True. I think the philosophy is about that early game jungle pathing. I think that's how a lot of the strategy is going to come into today. This LPL plus, if you've missed any of the previous games, besides the series from yesterday, has pretty much all been determined by early lane matchups and early jungle pathing. Early game has been so important in LPL so far. Whether that has been about, you know, having a Lilia which gets super far ahead in farm, or whether it's about a Misfortune which blows out a laning phase, or the same kind of thing in a different lane, that has been such an important part. So when you then bring that bit of information, bring it into this series and say, well, okay, these teams are very good in the mid game, but they also have junglers which have changed the way that their teams play their early game. I want to see how that then interacts with each other. There's a lot of noise in the data when you're playing Wei versus Tarzan here, when you don't have Shun in there as well. Maybe this does change things a little bit in how that early game plays, and we'll have to see whether that will be then a continuation of LPL having this huge early game focus.
I do think one thing just worth quickly mentioning before the series starts, technically Shun is still on the roster. Should everything explode, it's possible there's a substitution. I don't expect that to happen today, but just letting people out there know, Shun is still technically on this roster as well, so there's a possibility when it comes to that. But only time will tell. And one of the interesting things statistically about Tarzan, actually, and the way that he plays the game,
give me the numbers.
His jungle proximity is exceptionally low for every single lane. Like, the statistic, if you just looked at the stats alone, you would assume that Tarzan never interacts with the lane and is only interested in farming, because, I mean, his best one is 15th place with a 30% proximity to mid. It's not exactly,
wow.
It's not exactly inspiring proximity from Tarzan.
So, I'll let you know into the thought process behind this. When you hear a number like that, you try and then rationalize it somehow. Tarzan is very quick and efficient the way he gets lanes, but that still really surprises me. Anyway, into our first draft of the day. No Aurora as the cameraman. Watch your step there, buddy. Watch your step there, buddy, as we get into draft.
Oh, dear. Oh, Ned on the stage. He's got dodgy knees already, and one of them's just gone. Nightmare. Okay, here we go. BLG panning away the Nidalee. So Nidalee maybe just going to be a main character for this one. The Rumble gone, as well as the Lucian, and Misfortune removed. Ashe removed. Things like Leona still open. Ezreal still open in terms of first pickable.
So, we're going to see a lot of good information from this one. Are we going to have a... we could even see something like a Renekton going over to Bin as a first pick. We have seen that, and I think Bin does deserve that kind of lane-dominant kind of mention to him. But he's also happy to counter a Bin to counter that Renekton, so maybe less valuable. Ezreal still up on the table. That could be very important too. And with stuff like the Ashe off the draft table too, maybe something like a Leona also raises in priority.
One of the interesting picks, I think, well, not that interesting, but one of the picks that could come through here for BLG is actually Nautilus, which I'm not saying first pick, but on one of the few players that still actually likes that Nautilus. It's his most played off the split. Pretty much everyone else has forgotten about the pick. BLG start things off as many teams have in this playoffs, with that Renekton blind pick for the top side. We've seen Jace's punish it, we've seen Kennan's punish it, we've seen many teams punish it.
Looking over at the side of Breathe, though, he has been the Renekton player. He's the guy that would pick that up the most. So taking that away from him and giving yourself a stable pushing early lane, typically for the side of BLG, yeah, there are some things which can contest it, as you were saying. But still, that safe early pushing lane can be very, very valuable as Tarzan picks up that Zyra, so clear speed queen being locked in.
I will say, Breathe has played 3 games of Kennen this split and he's won all 3 of them. I feel like, you know, Breathe is definitely a player that's comfortable going for a counter pick, but Xiaohu going to grab himself that Zeri. Zeri is starting to become a bit of a main character of the mid lane in playoffs.
So it's so powerful, and what it also allows you to do is use that wall ride to play very, very defensively in side lanes. Xiaohu, the biggest thing which stuck out to me was how when they went into the 1-3-1, Xiaohu was playing absorbing 3-man ganks. So BLG, they will need to be a little bit afraid of Xiaohu kind of setting up the map very, very effectively as Knight goes towards the Corki. Have to say, not been his priority pick throughout this GSFR, and that sadly is global banned. You see it in the middle, or is not available to be picked. So the bunny will was 100% presence before, of course, it was global disabled. Will not be gracing our screens for this moment in time. But yeah, Knight goes towards that Corki, trying to scale up in the AD carry versus AD carry matchup.
It does feel like Xiaohu, with an incredibly strong side laner like Zeri, and his strongest style has always been the side laning. It is a match made in heaven, isn't it? The Zeri stats look good as well, but the Maokai locked in potentially for Wei could also be technically a support flex, but I would anticipate that going into the jungle, being somewhat of a hard engage, somewhat of a disengaged pick as well for the side of BLG. As Weibo have to decide their third and final lock-in. Remember, Leona still open and available.
Yeah, but Ezreal is, see, Ezreal's so strong. It's one of Light's best matchups. So now you can take the Ezreal, ban away the Kai'Sa. The Misfortune's already gone, and I think Light is going to have himself a very cushy laning phase there. They could have also thought to lock in something like a Cassandra there too, and the reason I say that is that if you picture the team fights already with the 3 picks in, without the other champions completing that draft, someone being stood there to deny the Maokai ult could be so important. Having that Cassandra W to go unstoppable would have been really nice to have that on 3, even though it's a losing lane-ish versus the Renekton, you can stabilize it. That could have been valuable. Wouldn't surprise me to see BLG potentially banning away that and maybe something like the cannon as well, if they want to stop Breathe having impact.
I do wonder what direction BLG will go in with their bottom lane. Things like Ziggs up, which we've really seen sort of fall off a bit in playoffs. Much less Ziggs play than at the end of summer. Things like the Senna as well, which only really BLG and top esports have been particularly interested in. Don't know if that's something BLG will really want to look towards. But as you say, Kai'Sa's still up and available. That's something Elf absolutely loves to play. It's great into the Ezreal. I would not be surprised to see yet that is taken off the board.
So BLG, yeah, I think Cannon's a good ban here. Unless you want to do something like a Caitlyn Braum and you want to ban away the Karma. That's the other thing, because Ezreal Karma can kind of screw with some of those lane dominant lanes, because Ezreal Karma is one of those historic lanes to that lane dominance level. They ban out the Leona instead, so Cannon is available for Breathe, expecting a top lane pick here from Weibo, and then save for last pick support counter pick, particularly because BLG love their lane dominant bot lanes. You don't want to leave yourself up for lane dominant counter pick, bot lane being locked in by BLG without having your own support counter pick.
So Weibo not going to go for the cannon, instead going for that Gragas. We saw what 369 was able to do on a tank Gragas against the Renekton yesterday. It was brutal. We'll see if Breathe can resemble that as BLG look towards their own bottom lane. We mentioned the Ziggs. It certainly could be a potent pick in terms of getting that lane presence and having a bit of AP damage within the roster as well.
Yeah, so that's going to be combo-based bot lane. Doesn't have to be weak side. Ziggs very good at killing towers if you can get yourself ahead in that lane, and you did highlight that Nautilus before on one of the few people that still plays it. Rel is the person that kind of clumps people up into the ult, though. That's the multi-target combo you can get through. So that one's locked in. Nice and easy for the teamfight engage.
So Rel through, and now Weibo. Final lock-in here. Alistair has become a big priority support, especially because of the presence of Rel. It's so good into the pick individually, being able to deny the combo, being able to just get her away from your team as well, but also pretty good at setting up for dives, potentially. When you've got a Zyra coming out of the jungle, could be an option for the side of Weibo.
Also allows you to be someone who, we said this about the Cassante, but you can shrug off the Maokai. Maokai throws the ult at you, and the Alistair can press ult to counter it, be that blocker in the front line, go and cleanse off the Nature's Grasp. So, as we're looking at these team compositions, I think BLG, they have some really cool dynamic combos where you have the Maokai ult starting off to corral Weibo into a certain position, and then you have Rel and Renekton coming in from different angles. Hopefully the carries of BLG can follow up with enough damage. On the other side though, I think the cast, great disengage. Alistair ult, great disengage too. And of course Zyra, the queen of that from the jungle too. I think we're definitely going to see that come into play. BLG try and set up this multi-angled engage, whereas Weibo on the other side, they'll probably want to be playing keep away a little bit more with a lot of their champions locked in.
We'll see if they can, as you say, keep them away. It's always a challenge. But honestly, I feel like this could be a bit of a bagger to start us off. And honestly, for the early game, it's going to be all about these junglers for me. I think watching how Tarzan approaches this and how Wei responds to Tarzan. You know, he got to witness Tarzan's previous series. He's got the data. He's got the footage. What can he do with it? Can he figure out the mind of this jungler on Weibo, who has been an absolute monster for them? 10 MVPs this year for Weibo. Tarzan has been the main character of this team, and he's got Zyra to start off his series. We'll see if Weibo can start off strong against the reigning champions in BLG as we head into game number 1 of our top 4 here in the LPL.
And the crowd descends into its madness after the initial shouts. I love seeing these crowds, man. The LPL crowds always very, very passionate about their teams, and they have absolutely every right to do so. I think it's also important to note, folks, that, of course, we are down to our last teams to qualify for Worlds. No LPL team has technically qualified yet, but the teams which are still in it are, of course, our 2 teams here today, but also Top Esports, LNG, NIP, and JDG as well, which spread between either the teams left in and, of course, that regional qualifiers. So we actually have a very, very open bracket to keep things off in terms of looking forwards from this point.
We certainly do. I mean, honestly, the top 4 this year in LPL are kind of insane. When you look at these 4 teams, it's absolutely mental. If these are the 4 teams that make it to the World Championship, my LPL looks pretty strong for that tournament. Obviously, LCK also looking pretty good right now, but I'm just excited to see the rest of this bracket, you know. We've still got 6 best-of-5s to go in playoffs, and every single one of them looks to be incredible quality. I don't feel like we've got a bad 4th seed in the way that LPL almost always does.
Yeah. No, I think that I'm looking at LPL right now, and it's actually quite hard to call as clearly as it has been in the past. The top teams, as we've done before, champions, or even just our top couple of teams. Very, very hard to tell the difference in terms of predictions between them. As we go into this early game, we are going to see Tarzan pathing towards bot side, Wei on the other side of things, pathing from bot to top. Weibo have much better jungle pathing early information though, because they do have wards onto that Raptors. They'll spot Wei now, and of course they had some defensive vision in their own jungle too to make sure that no one was putting down wards onto their own red buff as Tarzan was coming through. And as we've highlighted early jungle pathing, this could be very, very important. That information does make a difference.
And Wei not doubling back for any shenanigans or anything like that, so it will be this bottom lane of BLG in the 2v2, getting some good damage on Chris, but on is traded back by Light. Nice little bit of damage out from this Ezreal, and importantly, Tarzan is pathing towards this bottom lane. The wave is stacked up. You've got an Alistair. I mean, this could be a dicey situation for the BLG bot lane.
Yeah, Tarzan was even yeah, you can see that backstep. He was thinking about skipping Gromp, and he is exactly doing that. He's coming down for a very quick timing. Tarzan, once again, bold early path, dropping a camp to make a play on the map.
So, Light's got to clear this wave out as fast as possible, get this minion wave underneath the tower. I think Tarzan maybe had time for his Gromp, to be honest, as he waits for this wave to get underneath the tower in the bottom lane. 4 minions to work with. That should be enough. Tarzan moves in on an Elk on their own. Good flash, but instant double pull from Chris, but he's locked up under the tower. An Elk and on find the first blood. Tarzan takes a chunk as Elk throws these bombs out relentlessly. Light on the edge of aggro range, though, answers in kind.
So 1-for-1 in the dive. Big thing here though, Light has to reset and Elk has a teleport, so he's actually not even that unhappy with this. Weibo, they make the bold early play again. Tarzan once again drops a camp to make a play happen. It's not the cleanest thing they could have gone for, but it's still something on the board. I think Tarzan getting that kill also very, very important because he's going to get himself an easy Fated Ashes on his first back because he will get that extra kill gold involved there. Now, of course, he goes back for his Gromp as well. Didn't find time for it before. Finally gets that time to take it.
Importantly, Wei did manage to get a ward onto those chickens, so we'll see if that changes anything as they engage. Fantastic from Crisp. Double pulverize.
It is really nice, but a lot of the cooldowns are still there from Elk and on, and that no one dies in the duration of the CC, so they do get to fire back. And when you're dealing with level 3 champions across the board, just getting a rotations of abilities out is really important. Can get you an awful lot of damage back down, which is exactly what we saw there. So Elk, he teleported back in towards that bot lane, got himself the next wave, and now he's recalling again to get himself that lost chapter. Lost chapter at 4.5 minutes. Elk is very, very happy with that one. Fairly sure at that point, as Light and Crisp, they get to come back to lane with a tier, but actually at this point, Light is behind in combat stats compared to Elk. That can affect this 2v2. We'll see whether Elk and On can now get some control over this lane, because now the problem is they have the combat stats. If they start pushing in and Ziggs starts hitting tower, Ziggs is then hitting a tower. That is a problem. Don't have to explain that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, lost chapter, 5 minutes in, is pretty nice going for Elk, if all things considered. Be happy with how this one started. And remember that was a 3-man commit on the bottom side, so Wei, didn't necessarily manage to get anything else done, but in the meantime, he's found his way through the bottom side of the jungle, and he wants to influence this bottom lane for once. Crisp has no flash and is half HP. Wei has a free entry in, surely does go for the engage. Thought he was walking away for a second there, and he does grab the kill.
I think he was maybe a little bit afraid because he saw that Tarzan potentially could be heading towards here. Now he needs to be careful. He has flash. Does need to be careful though.
Sapling spots out Tarzan and will get the slow down. Follows the flash and Q over the wall as well. But the bombs coming through from Elk and doing so much work. Wei though might not get away with this one and has to flash. Xiaohu was on his way. And BLG don't want any of that.
Yeah, you can see at the start of that play where he was thinking, oh, if this play goes long, we could be really in for it. He does get that kill anyway, rightfully so. And gets out just using that flash, blowing Tarzan as well. I think very important for this. I think the Zyro with that flash will feel a little bit more vulnerable than the Maokai on the other side of this. Now, getting back out of these plays. That's an ult under turret. Bin, you might need to pop the Dominus.
Oh, been chunked. I mean, this is what we saw yesterday. Tank Gragas finding solo kills onto Renekton's. Can breathe, pull it off. There's the flash. And he doesn't even Q. He just lets Bin go for the ult.
So close. If Breather managed to get just one little extra bit of damage, he would have got the kill, but Bin gets the immediate HP back from that Dominus. Close run thing in this top side, and this is now a problem for Breathe, because this is your point of power here in the Gragas versus Renekton matchup. You do lose the CS, but you tend to get the one solo kill opportunity. He's kind of lost that now. Bin survives that, and he's now going to walk away a very, very happy Crocodile with that CS advantage, which we were just talking about. While all this is happening, we have a trade of objectives. Tarzan took that Dragon, BLG take the 3 early grubs.
Decent start, honestly, for BLG. It's small advantages, but advantages nonetheless in both of those side lanes. Mid lane's neutral. It's going to be down to Tarzan here. He's the one with the lead for Weibo, and he has been somewhat of a main character for the team. I mean, hang on, I'm going to stop talking. I was going to talk about MVPs here, but we've got an invade going on, and I feel like a fight could happen any minute between these two teams. Chris moving in to try and help. Tarzan just steal away as much as possible.
Hey, what were we saying? That's when we were loading into this series. LPL has been so early game focused, and Tarzan particularly has been a very dynamic path there. I think that BLG, you can see that they have a good understanding of where the early game plays can be made. Elk right there, just making sure he can clear through that wave there, uses his ult, but it means there's no extra dive threat coming through into that one. And this is some of the difference, which of course, I think Wei brings to the side of BLG too. Maybe if they had Shun, they'd be looking for a fight there. I think that Wei, he's more of a player that really tries to be a bit more stable. He goes for the farm here on the other side, takes back some camps to make sure that even though Tarzan gets a huge host of camps from his own jungle, he does at least return in kind.
Yeah, and also just playing towards a strong side as well, right? Bin so far ahead on this Renekton at this point. He's quite happy to split the map because you've got a Ziggs bot too, so it's very easy to clear those minion waves. Breathe going to try and deny Wei another jungle camp here. Will just get one of those Krugs, and now maybe setting up for Xiaohu. Root comes on through. There's a knock up onto Wei. No flash available for the tree. And it's easy pickings for Xiaohu.
Yeah, so he was playing on strong side, and then the strong side left, and he was just on his own. So he's overstays, and that's going to be a really important kill over to Xiaohu now. We said that Xiaohu's had a bit of a resurgence in his own play. Most of this year he'd been really struggling, but the back half of this summer, Xiaohu has been very, very powerful. And on the Zeri too, he has looked very, very good in the games we've seen him on recently. Getting a kill there, very, very important for Weibo.
I mean, we've seen twice now Xiaohu roaming to these side lanes. Knight so far invisible in this game. He's just been sticking to mid lane. Doesn't have a CS lead or anything like that. So we'll see. I mean, he might be able to push a couple of minions in under tower here, so maybe can build a minor CS lead, but need to see him start influencing the game on this Corki. Xiaohu already on the board. And those Zerka Greaves feel so good on this area. It feels like such a big pickup.
You can see right here, you know, Wei going through the top side, trying to answer to the Zyra on the other side of it, but of course both junglers traded Flash earlier. Breathe knows that he has his mid laner coming, and I think this is an important thing about Zeri. Zeri, sometimes it is helpful to think of her E as a semi-global ability, because this is not a normal range dash. This is not okay. He gets to go right the way across the map and come through with a huge amount of damage coming through from their first ult as well. Zeri actually has good burst damage if you get that ult on target. And Xiaohu just using that roaming potential of Zeri really, really well. She is actually quite well kitted out to be a mid laner because she can just wall ride like that.
Feels like a perfect pick for Xiaohu. Honestly, it feels like this being a mid laner was destiny for him. But Knight disagrees as he just straight up out trades Xiaohu, just to make me eat my words. But Xiaohu so far, 3 games on the pick this year, 100% win rate, 9 KDA. Like this is a pick that Xiaohu has been really enjoying. And it's later on into the game, once side laning really comes into the picture, that's where he separates himself from the pack.
Xiaohu has always been a side lane god, really. That's where he arguably made his name, playing through side lanes, whether that was in top lane or in mid lane. He's done it over different roles over different amounts of time. The pick is very much going to help him with that one. So, we have ourselves, all things said and done, actually quite an even-ish early game, because we do have you know, 1,000 gold in it, 10 minutes, 11 minutes. That's still not a bad gold lead for BLG. It's okay for this point in the game. We do have those splitted objectives on the other side of things. We have grubs and we have dragons coming up, and we'll see where that comes into it beyond that point. But really, because we have even-ish gold, I want to see how side lanes are going to go beyond this point, because both of these teams have really liked to go towards side lanes in that mid game and try and use these dynamic teleports to try and split open the map.
I'm so glad that we do get that, as you say, a sort of relatively even early game to start us off in this series. It's only 1,000 in favor of BLG. They will get 6 grubs, which is a pretty nice advantage, especially, as you mentioned, we could have side lane deciding a lot of this. Well, 6 grubs will certainly help in that regard, won't it?
Are you ready for Ziggs to just like half health a tower to single auto?
I mean, Renekton becomes a potent split pusher when 6 grubs are involved. Yeah, I don't know. Towers not looking like they're going to be very strong in this one for Weibo. As Wei going to go for an invade on the top side. I wasn't sure if he was going to try and set up as a breathe, but Bin was recalling. Again, every time Wei goes for these crooks, Bin is like, I'm out of here.
Ah, you got it. You know, I trust you. You'll be fine, right? An ally has been slain. That's the one kind of notification you have popping up. So we have had full trade of these early game objectives, grubs for dragons. I will say Weibo have good wave clear. So Renekton is not going to find it that easy to hit towers, and that can be a bit of an issue.
Bin's on the bottom side now. Elk has swapped up to the top lane. You can see the recalls coming through from Light and Crisp there to try and answer this swap. But remember, 6 grubs on a Ziggs, and that's a Ziggs with a full item as well. This tower might not survive long enough.
Yeah, BLG have just gotten ahead. I know it's a bit of a vague term, but they've gotten ahead in terms of tempo. They've managed to get back towards the lanes first. Weibo have to defend. They have to be very, very close. And now this is the problem, because they haven't allocated their lanes quickly enough. They don't get the wave clear in position at the right time. Ziggs gets to hit turret. He has 6 grubs. That's going to be a satchel kill on that turret. First tower of the game goes towards the Ziggs. That's a hell of a lot of gold, and while all that was happening, Bin was actually taking a load of plates on the bot side as well. Huge amount of gold, immediately swings in BLG's favor. Side laning is definitely something that they're very proficient at, and they show it there.
Honestly, one of the biggest things that Weibo did well in their series against NIP was actually these lane allocations and finding advantages in a very similar way to what BLG just did to them. They've been beaten at their own game here, as it will be a tower on the top side. The fact that Bin is getting plates bottom side simultaneously, a lot of this playoffs has been about cross maps, has been about trying to answer. Tarzan wants to answer with a red buff down here, and it looks like he will get away with it.
So Tarzan does maintain a little bit of a gold lead individually, but that's the bright spot for Weibo right now. This is really dangerous for Weibo. They just gave over a ton of golds. You're going to get the next recalls coming through, or have actually just been completed here, and you now see those items starting to rack up from BLG. Herald's coming up too. You can't really allow a Herald to go over to a 6 Grubs team, but what choice are Weibo going to have? You know, they're already getting pushed in across the board. I don't really think they can pull people from these lanes to go fight for that Herald. Yeah, it's spotting down there in the left-hand corner. Thanks for emphasizing the point there. Weibo do not want to let that go over to BLG.
They certainly don't. As you say, what choice do they have? Can they fight for this one? I mean, Light has his Triforce at this point, as Elk finishes another tower. Wasn't quite in time to get the bonus plates, but still, 2 towers, both of the local golds going into the Ziggs pocket. I want to see what Elk buys on this recall, because he might just be close to a second item. I think maybe not 2 items. Maybe that's a bit too much, but certainly another tier 2 component. In fact, he bought nothing.
Yeah, he ended up completing the first item before this, which is why
okay, there we go.
Get resets through. And Xiaohu, we said he's good at playing defensively in side lanes, but he might still be caught out here.
The route doesn't quite connect. Wei finds the flash though, knocks him back into the team, and On can follow up with a CC chain. Bin cuts him down. And that's a nice pick for BLG right as Herald comes up.
Typically, Xiaohu's used this area very, very well defensively. It's just that BLG are much more decisive and quick to the punch here. They managed to catch him even with the wall ride and that flash. So Weibo, the down a mid lane, he's not going to be up in terms of teleport timing for this Herald. On does use his ultimate, and he does have half HP now, though. I wonder whether HP differential means that Weibo can stick around for a little bit, wait for that teleport to come through. The kill onto Xiaohu might have just given the Herald over to Weibo all the same if they want to teleport in hard for this.
Bin has his TP, as does Knight. So they could recommit to this play, I suppose, off of the reset here, but looks like the answer is no. Looks like Knight is just going to push that wave in the bottom side, and Weibo will take themselves a Herald. So, nice objective for them, and an important objective for them. As you said before, 6 Grubs already for BLG. You've got a Ziggs as well, which is probably one of the best Herald users in the entire game. You really couldn't afford to lose that objective as Weibo. They'll be very happy with that pickup.
Tarzan will be familiar with that because, of course, last year when he was in LNG, he was part of that team which played the Tristana Ziggs combo every time they possibly could with the Herald pushes to get huge advantages across the map. So that's a way for Weibo to get themselves back on the board in terms of turrets. They don't have any so far. They'd really like to open up the map just a little bit. Remember what we were saying from draft. BLG typically have the aggressive side of the combo. They pull the Maokai ult and they want to engage from multiple sides. Weibo wants to be playing disengage and they want to be buying some space and play a little bit of keep away. It is much harder to do that when you're getting pushed into your inner turrets and you don't have any vision control to protect yourself from those multiple angles. I think BLG getting map control like this, it really opens up their aggressive options.
Playing in Pixel Brush here, away Bo, but nobody's going to go near it. Drake coming up. And perhaps a deciding moment in this game. It's been a quiet start to the top 4 here in the LPL. Only 5 kills in 17 minutes. But BLG building themselves a pretty sizable lead at the moment. 3,000 in their favor as they start this Drake. And Herald actually dropped in the mid lane by Tarzan. Elk trying to get as much harass down as possible before this kicks off. I don't know if it will kick off as the Drake is already down to 5k. BLG, they might just have this in the bag uncontested. Has been there defending. The Drake will fall. Weibo don't really do anything, well, anywhere on the map.
They get themselves the Herald charge on mid to get half HP there, but it's not opening up the map in the way that we would like them to. And also, Breathe walked his way down to this fight, maybe trying to play defense, but now he's not in a side lane. Xiaohu was going to run into Wei as well. Should be okay. Might even just run it in.
Yeah, that's a 1v1 that Xiaohu wins. Wei realizes he's got to get out of dodge. Has that phase rush on the Maokai. So even Zeri looks slow in comparison to phase rush. Will walk away with his life, and we're still sparring. The Drake's already gone, guys. Like, I feel like we're still posturing as if it's up.
You know, this is a fun tangent. Did you know that palm trees can actually just walk? They can actually just walk over time. Well, this one's walking very close towards this mid lane. That's a cast going forwards.
Need context on that later. Is Breed feeling like a walking palm tree as he's walking away? Yeah, bit of a weak one there, but you know what? It was a bit of a weak fight, so it matched.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's the Mark Elk coming in. I guess you could do that. But yeah, palm trees, they could just start walking with their
What do you
wrists.
mean?
I have
How
no
do
idea.
they walk?
Yeah,
That can't be
they
possible.
just move. They can just walk very slowly over extended periods of time. Look, trust me, look it up on the internet somewhere.
I know you've got a science degree in that, but I don't think that gives you the right to just state random things and try and persuade people. That is definitely not true. I refuse to believe you.
That's me trying to pass the charisma check at the same time. Hey, anyway, I'll do my research on that in the break beyond this point, especially with Wei being a very, very scary old tree in this one. And yeah, you can see the power of BLG. Just again going slightly, I know, going back towards gameplay very, very briefly. You are seeing these aggressive engage combos coming in through that Maokai ultimate, trying to open up points like this, and of course eventually death by 1,000 cuts. Weibo can't do the keep away well enough, they can't wave clear well enough, and now they've lost their full ring of outer turrets.
I mean, it's a 4,000 gold lead for BLG, and they got the most recent Drake. One, I guess, shining light for. Oh, actually, like gonna get not just denied his recall, but loses basically half his HP to Elk at this point. This Ziggs is devastating. Remember, I mentioned earlier that Knight has been a bit invisible in this game, not had much impact on this Corki. It's kind of not mattered though. All he needs to do is clear waves, take up farm, just have enough items if team fights do kick off. But realistically, he's just on side lane janitorial duty.
What's kind of been interesting in this game, because we're talking about that Corki and not really doing that much, when we've seen players like, say, Shanks on the Corki, or, I mean, Xiaohu's had this kind of situation put to him as well, Scout is a player which takes a load of resources too. Typically, we see the Corki getting the side lane farm. Typically, we see him getting the side lane out of turrets. This has been given to Elk, and it's been given to Bin instead. Knight is not getting those resources at all.
No, just watching On and Wei struggle desperately to take a single ward. They do have to use a second sweep and charge at the end. Been trying to get onto Xiaohu here. Not going to commit any summoners or anything like that. Nothing crazy going on in that bottom side. And I have to say, not the start to the series that I expected. I was not anticipating such a slow start from both teams, especially BLG. A team historically that in playoffs do go aggressive. Speaking of aggressive, Crisp trying to find out, and the true shot barrage will finish the job. Tarzan turns gold, and in the meantime, there's a kill in the top side. Okay, I ask for aggression. It's answered immediately as a stun onto Crisp. I'm not sure why he took that blast cone, but now he's in a bit of a dicey spot. He's pathing to the wrong side of the map his way, knocks him back into the team. Tarzan trying to survive in the back of the blue pit. The ignite's not enough, and Crisp walks away.
What? How does that end up only being that amount of kills? I was sure that BLG were going to get something more out of that, but Tarzan, great damage from him, and Weibo do somehow manage to play a little bit of that keep away that we've been talking about from that draft. I think particularly Tarzan there with that turnaround burst saving the day from Weibo. As soon as that teleport came in from Knight after he'd recovered mana back at base, thought that would change things very, very drastically into BLG's favor. This does mean now that BLG have lost a little bit of that control which they just had before this point. Xiaohu managed to push out that bot lane, managed to push in this top lane as well, so he's got himself some farm there and pushes BLG a little bit further back. As we go into this replay, we'll see what happened on the top side of this, which is where Breathe finds where Knight... yeah, I don't know what happened with Breed's E cooldown. Maybe that was just not available, but he goes down very, very easily there as we see the Ziggs goes down importantly on the other side too. That's going to be quite important this next bit. Because remember what we were saying before, Knight hasn't gotten the resources, the Ziggs has instead. The Ziggs goes down first, which means a lot of the gold goes with it. And even though Chris does kind of go a little bit too far, he does end up getting himself a really good headbutt to make sure he can buy enough space and somehow makes his way out of this.
I mean, the Strangle Thorns from Tarzan, absolutely heroic there. That ultimate doesn't come through or it's misplaced. I think that's one dead cow. But either way, BLG still happy to sit on those objectives. They've got 2 Drakes in a row now, assuming that the smite is true from Wei. And that'll be 2 Drakes as well. Wei's going to be very happy with that, as is On. Neither of these guys really builds true tank. It's kind of this supportive build, and you're trying to play frontline. Mountain Soul will certainly help bolster.
Absolutely. I think we have definitely gotten into a meta where supports can actually be tanks, and I think that having stuff like these extra dragons can really help with them. I think we've seen so much Leona, and Leona is just absurdly tanking. That can sometimes change your perception of them, though. We have seen, over time, a great many Rels and Alistairs and Nautiluses still be kind of wet tissue paper when it comes to the big fights. So the Mountain Dragons, they'll definitely take those. I mean, it's not like supports get that much else in terms of items, so we'll take it.
I just love that both of our supports here, as we get to top 4, there was the nerfs to Warmogs and to the runes and whatever to make it so that Warmogs first doesn't work anymore. Well, they're still going Warmogs first. On and Crisp don't care. They're close to finishing that first item. Knight potentially assassinated in this top side, but just looks for the 1v1 on his opposite man. Xiaohu in trouble, burning on the Valkyrie! Oh! Knight finds it, 1v3, he gets his man!
Knight gets his honor duel in the top side, makes sure he fells his opponent, beheads him. Just before Weibo managed to take him down. That's a very important 1-for-1 they invested. A teleport, and BLG will be able to make their way out of this too. Because the teleport was invested by Weibo and they overcommit towards this top side, they now suddenly don't have that answer on the bot side now. Bin with the 6 grubs can push in there. We'll see how much damage he does to that in a turret and how many waves he can stay for. But Knight overperforming in that 1v3 scenario on top side opens up extra options on the sidelines for BLG. As we said, both these teams love these sidelines.
Fantastic split-second decision-making from Knight, just finds his opposite man. We talked about Xiaohu and Knight being legends of the league. Well, Knight says this is my league now. He's the 3-peat right now, and he wants a 4th trophy.
I mean, serious credit to Knight here, where he realizes, look, I'm not getting out of this. Like, I got to make sure I make a difference. Flashes into melee range of Breathe, because he knows he's going to get the AoE, the big one. Exactly. He does go down. He does lose the flash, but he makes sure that Weibo's overcommitment towards this top side is actually met in kind.
Absolutely phenomenal from Knight there. A player that, you know, has been a stalwart of the very top of the league in LPL for a good old while. And for a long time, it felt like he couldn't convert that into trophies, you know. That story has ended. He's won the last 3 LPL splits, and he's wanting to do the same again here on BLG. They're looking for domestic dominance this year, and Weibo, the 4th seed, coming in, their first contender. Remember, this is the first game we see from BLG in playoffs. I've got to say, so far so good.
So, get ourselves back out onto the map. We talked about how the early game was maybe a little quieter than we thought, but we definitely knew that if these teams did have their fighting prowess ready and available, they are very, very good at getting themselves into side lanes later. And it's like, God, he just can't stand up against this Ziggs. Skill shot accuracy great from Elk, but Weibo tried to play the side lanes. They have failed. BLG can just go straight down the front and center.
I mean, who needs side lanes? When you're hitting bombs like Elk is, it's not like anyone can really defend. Phenomenal. There's a tier 2 down in the mid lane, and more map control for BLG on, just trying to buy as much space for his team as possible. Now, 1 ward in the Baron pit. It's going to be a real nuisance for BLG, but it's going to time out shortly. And to be honest, I don't think BLG are looking towards this Baron just yet, because Drake's coming up in just over a minute. And that's probably the juicier prize.
BLG just have options. Bluntly, they just have options. Just full point. They can go towards side lanes. Being going to walk in towards Xiao, who does have those double buffs, and of course it's level 16 on the Zeri. Hang on a second. Wait, that's a bit far, Xiao.
TP comes through from Knight. Xiaohu has his own flash available and instantly uses it. Bin looking to chase. Xiaohu gets over the wall, but he's into the wrong side of the map, and Bin completely fumbles his flash. The TP from Xiaohu, but Wei denies it. Lightning Clash is all it's going to be, just a clash. But if it's a clash in the jungle and nobody hears, did it really make a sound?
Well, Wei is going to be walking away from that. I'm sure he'll tell some tales of it and make sure the observations are spread to the world. Weibo almost got themselves an escape out of there from Xiaohu, but it's not quite to be. Can't get himself out, and sadly Weibo weren't really in position to cross map either. One of the big praises I had for Xiaohu was him being able to play safely in these side lanes, but you're against BLG now. BLG are one of the best teams at punishing that in the world, and they've caught Xiaohu out now multiple times, 1 and 3 after he'd had that great couple of roams in the early game. And suddenly now BLG, they've managed to get control of these side lanes again. They start starving out vision around here. They have their options. They can go towards Dragon, they go towards Baron, they can go towards side lanes. Whatever they want, they're strong enough to do it.
They've got the run of the map at this moment in time. And to be honest, they are a team that typically, when they've got their way, there's not many people that can contend with it. There's not many people that can find their way back into a game that BLG is ahead in. Tarzan, though, on the side, we'll remember, very good at Baron, extremely good at Baron. Just setting up some plants in the area, potentially looking to trade for this Drake. And in fact, there is no vision in the pit, but I don't know. Elk's here, Wei's here, On's here. Knight's just soloing the Drake in the meantime, and that will be 3. Weibo realise there is no opportunity there. BLG doing a really good job of having presence on both sides of the map.
And also, it's very hard to do a Baron in that kind of setup against a Maokai while you're on red side, because you're behind in this game. There's a load of gold on a lot of these carries. That Ziggs is terrifying. We have, oh yeah, we've got Elkenheimer. How did we forget about this? Yeah, there we go. Got him in the bot lane, turning up again. Now, if that little yordle in the bot lane is packing that kind of heat, and Wei puts an ult down against this enemy team stuck against the wall because Weibo are on red side, that Ziggs is going to get point-and-click abilities after that point, and it really is going to be a blockbuster which Weibo will probably not want to be in the cinema seats for.
Could be an explosive finish to this one, just like it was back when we all went to IMAX a little while ago. Surprisingly controversial, that one, honestly. I thought it was pretty good, but I feel like there's...
I enjoyed it.
Lots of different opinions on that one. I don't want to start another debate. I really can't be bothered to debate about that film anymore. But
what I will say is that after seeing Robert Downey Jr. in Marvel for a little while, not that he was bad there, but actually getting to do like a very prestige kind of role like that, that was great. I really enjoyed his performance in that one. So hey, that's the one thing I'll say.
All right, well,
it's coming through.
Keep your eyes on Elkenheimer. Oh, Tarzan. Luckily, had his anti-blast glasses on, so doesn't take the damage. Crisp will, though. There's more rockets flying on through. No, okay, he goes down this time. I thought he'd done it again. In the meantime, 1v1 on the bottom side, but Bin has that Sterex. He's pretty tanky. Oh, Breed goes wide on the knock-up, and Bin just walks away.
Yeah, so Bin and Breathe, neither of them able to teleport up towards this top side. Very weirdly close there from Weibo to get themselves something off of that. They almost caught out on, ends up being their support, which goes down at the other side. You can see that Tarzan and crew were trying to make sure that the Baron could be a way to bring BLG off of their lanes, which they're starting to really do some damage in, and have been continuing to do damage in, rather is the better way to phrase it. But they can't quite keep them there without the threat coming down at the same time. So, BLG, they're on soul point, 2.5 minutes until basically Weibo have to fight that. Weibo haven't been giving these big fights. I think they realize that if they go towards a big 5v5, they're in a lot of trouble. Even though they have that gold lead on the Zyra, it's so hard to play out the shape of these team fights. The Markout's going to clump you together. That's going to bring you for the Ral and the Ziggs. It's going to be really, really hellish to make your way through all of that tonnage of explosives that BLG are going to put towards them. So yeah, 2 minutes now, as we've been talking about this. Weibo, what are you going to do?
Only time will tell. And boy, have we had plenty of time in this game. This has been a slow one. This might be the slowest game of playoffs so far, honestly. Not what you necessarily expect from BLG, but to be honest, I do feel like maybe this is a sign of, like, playoffs. BLG is here now. You know, we're taking this seriously at this point. We're not going to be doing undisciplined play that we've started to expect from BLG sometimes. There are some games that I would describe as happy games this split, which perhaps, I mean, you know, I don't want to overstate it because I've seen like do happy games in playoffs before. You know, it's still possible, but so far in game number 1, feels like this is very much game faces for BLG.
Right, might need to schedule another test for that one. Elk, that one's not exactly worked out the way that he would have wanted to. Now suddenly, Weibo, they have both their teleports up. Ah, this is nice. So this is something that LNG do a little bit more. When they have double teleports and solo laners, they double stack them on one side of the map, blow open one side of the map, and still hold those teleports to do something else elsewhere. So while BLG have had a significant gold lead, because it's slowed down, because now Weibo have just got themselves a turret there, Weibo are actually getting themselves into a point where they have the items they need despite that gold deficit, and the longer we go into the game, that gold deficit is going to mean less and less.
Good bit of damage from Light, trying to respond to the previous engage between the AD carries, but could be rooted up here, and will be that. That's the cleanse burnt as Crisp headbutts the chicken to get himself out to safety again. And actually, wait, is the one to get the chicken, the sapling, heroically finishes that one off. Now the TP behind enemy lines, it's all about to kick off. Elk, the target, Satchel charge out, but flashes away from the engage from Breathe, and here comes Knight to carry the fight. Bomb flashed away from as Bin arrives, and Breathe will fall. BLG survived the attempt.
Fantastic flash coming through from Elk, saves his life. It means that Weibo can't find their engage. BLG are typically the ones we thought would be engaging, but Weibo try their hands at it, can't quite make it happen. A lot of summoners down now. Are Weibo just going to feel desperate enough to go towards the Baron? I mean, they've just lost themselves a pretty big play there. They might feel like they have to.
I mean, Knight is doing Drake, and it's a 4v4 on Baron. Xiao, who has his ult, Light has his ult. The carries from Weibo have a chance here as Elk is low. Wei gonna try and get into the pit, and he does! Of course he does! Wei saves the day for BLG, subbed in and saves the game. Elk now throwing out these bombs as Weibo desperately hunting for anything. Bin is somehow escaped on the top side, and Xiao, who forced a flash as Knight finds him again! And Tarzan will fall as a double. It's insult to injury as Light has nowhere to go. My goodness! BLG are here to play.
Blink and you miss it. Light is snuffed out. Weibo are put to the sword. BLG in one fell swoop get themselves 4 Mountain Dragons for the soul and the Baron Steel and the fight, and they might just take the Nexus. Wow, Weibo, everything just fell apart.
That was a brutal way for the game to end. We've been talking about Elk all game. It's Knight that comes up huge at the end of the day. These fights on the Corki have been phenomenal. I think that was his 8th kill as he ends the game. Knight took over.
BLG, they got shown an inch and they took an entire mile. Game 1 goes to them. It was a slower game than we thought potentially could be coming out. The early game was not bereft of action. We saw that Tarzan dropped a camp to try and go for an early bot lane dive. Didn't quite work out. And I feel like that was the story of Weibo in this game. It was a microcosm of all the other things where they go for this bold play where they teleport to a side lane. They look for a bot dive, but they just about get outplayed, so it's an even trade. And then BLG still have their cross map. We saw Knight getting kills in that top lane. The one time he died, it was for that glorious 1v3 in topside.
Yeah.
Much in that bot lane, much the same in that bot lane as well, where that dive didn't quite go off. Weibo couldn't get the clean plays.
I mean, he had a quiet early game, but for me, Knight is grabbing an MVP for that performance. Phenomenal game on the Corki. Slow and steady wins the race, apparently, for BLG. Fantastic first game, very clean. We'll see if Weibo can answer back after the break.
years of pain. Vi sörger, vi sörger. Cold and empty, lifeless remains. Vi sörger, vi sörger. Fields of the fallen and blood washed in rain. This cannot be all that will be. So you have torn this world
Welcome back, everybody, to the LPL. Welcome back to Top 4 here in summer 2024. BLG have started strong with a win over Weibo, a slow and calculated win, surprisingly. I'm joined by Nymera as we head towards game number 2, and I'm curious, Nymera, what do you think Weibo have to change coming into this one? Because it didn't necessarily feel like Weibo didn't play well.
No, it wasn't Weibo playing badly and their mistakes massively costing the game. I think the biggest thing was just decisiveness and reaction times. When BLG were making a play, Weibo were often a second too late to respond to it. When Weibo were making a play, they were often a second too late to activate on it. We saw that Knight got an extra kill out of it. Even the bot lane dive which started the game, Elkanon managed to get something out of that too. They just got to, this is going to sound really basic, they got to lock in, they got to be decisive, get themselves on those timings a little better, because they were losing across the cross-map plays, particularly in mid-game. We know that both these teams are great mid-game teams. We know that both of them love to play around the wider map. It's not just run it down mid consistently. They love to play towards those sidelines. If that is the way the series is going to go, Weibo have to get those timings really, really well. This is one of the biggest things for Weibo. Knight just understands the play much quicker than Weibo can get towards it. Manages to get a play out of it. If Chris was there a second or two earlier, does that happen? No. If Breathe managed to get there a second too early, does that happen? Well, maybe that'll be a little bit different. And once again here, Xiaohu a little bit late leaving that side lane there too, so he ends up going down. He does get a near escape here, but if Weibo are going to play on these side lanes like this, they got to be so clutch on their timing, because this is BLG's comfort zone.
Certainly is. I mean, BLG's so good at punishing every single little mistake. I think the sequence early on where they managed to get Elk up to the top side, finish the tower with plates, while Bin's getting plates on the bottom side, that was the biggest sequence to me that was like, okay, BLG are ahead in this one. BLG are the ones that are dictating the pace, and from that point, it never really felt like Weibo were properly in control again.
So, coming through to this next game is, God, even crowning this with the Dragon Soul into the Baron Steel into the end of the game. I mean, that was kind of desperation for Weibo. Hey, they had to go for something, but it's just insult to injury at that point. And I am glad that BLG showed us this game. This was a good game from BLG. I think Knight played well. I think that Wei played well. I think that the entire kind of ensemble performance from BLG was very, very coherent, and the way they played the map was great. Wei walks away with the MVP. Yeah, he had some really good shot calling moments. I think that there were a couple of times he was caught out, at least in that early game when he was down that flash, but on the whole, Wei was pretty good at making sure he was in the right place at the right time.
Wei looking towards Xiaohu and saying, those MSIs were all me, buddy. That was my word. Fantastic game from him on the Maokai. The phase rush doing a lot of work to get him out of some sticky situations a couple of times. But honestly, the fact he only died a singular time on a tank Maokai, fantastic game from him. And just great setups, like consistently hunting for Xiaohu in these side lanes.
This is so fun, because you were mentioning that has the MSIs, blah, blah, blah. When Wei came into RNG and he won those MSIs, Xiaohu was the person leading the mid-jungle. He was the one dragging Wei around the map, or of course the top jungle as well for that one time as well. And he was the person who was leading that macro. Wei has now become that leader. He did that after Xiaohu left RNG. He was the leader for that team for a while, and now he's brought himself on a BLG. I have no idea what deities Wei has prayed to get this opportunity to get off of that RNG roster, which has fallen apart, to somehow get onto BLG and play in a game like this and play in a roster like this to this level again. But it has massively worked out for him, whatever powers he's brought in.
He certainly has. Feels like BLG is just, there's something special about this team. There's something magical that makes it all work. We'll see if they can keep that ball rolling, as they've been also on this roster. Xiaohu's old teammate, Bin and Wei were both part of that MSI win in 2022, I believe was the one that they were in. Yeah, fantastic stuff anyway, coming out from BLG to start us off, and we'll see if they can keep that ball rolling. And I think Weibo now have an opportunity to answer back, right? They'll very likely swap sides coming into the next draft, and we'll see what changes here. I can imagine maybe just banning the Ziggs, honestly, or unless you want Line to play it yourselves. I think the Ziggs was a bit of a problem in terms of the pace that it managed to find in the early game.
I think side select's probably going to change as well. I think that Weibo are probably going to choose blue side. They'll see whether BLG have to then pick up the Lilia ban instead, something like that. I think Lilia is going to be probably 100% permanently banned throughout both these teams. I don't think either of them want to let that one through. And I think the big thing which Weibo will want to do, again, I don't think everything they did was poor in that game. As we said, it wasn't really a game where Weibo played poorly and they had mistakes made the game. It was just BLG playing well in a lot of the sense there. One of the things I want to see them do again then, following on from that point, is get that jungle matchup where you can start farming, get Tarzan onto the map a lot sooner. Again, I want to see more stuff like that Zyra on something which can clear through the map and just be ever present on the map. If you can then force Shun onto something which can't respond to the map so well, that can give you that playmaking overlap where just about Tarzan can find those windows, which he's been very good at doing so in summer.
Yeah, we'll see if he can. I think as well, just Xiaohu trying to find more of these roams, which is tough criticism because I feel like Xiaohu was hunting for these roams, but none of them really quite working out in the early game. It's one of the big values that Zeri brings. We got to see that one pick towards the top side, and as you say, the slide, almost like a semi-global, the way that you can get into those side lanes. We'll see if that comes through again. Is that a sausage on a stick? I want to be in the arena right now. Give me one of those.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I was actually looking. You know what I was looking at this game? I was looking at some research here because I had on my second screen. In the last game, I was talking about how there were some trees which walk. Apparently, there is a palm tree which can move 20 meters a year. It's in Ecuador, I believe. Anyway, that's just the thing. You asked me to look that up. There is actually a tree which can walk slightly. There is some backup to that. I was completely pulling your leg.
Don't just believe everything you read on the internet, Alex. Like, I still don't believe it. Until I see it, I don't believe it. Ecuador, you're lying.
You're going to stand there for a year and watch it move 20 meters?
Yep. If that's what it takes. If that's what it takes, I'm willing to commit to I mean, I'll just sit in a house nearby and watch League of Legends.
Right.
And then just like
sit out on your porch.
I'll sit at my desk with the palm tree in the window, right? And I can just draw on my window with a Sharpie where the palm tree currently is from my seated position.
You've got to sit in exactly the same position, though. You've got to sit in exactly the same position.
But over a year, 20 meters is a long way.
Right.
Even if it's not exact, like, you'll be able to see. Anyway, enough about palm trees. Let's get into game number 2. It's Weibo versus BLG. And Weibo moving over to the blue side now. Rumble continuously banned throughout the series, and I anticipate that will stay true throughout the rest of this series. Wouldn't be surprised to see something like the Lilia ban, but importantly, Tarzan, no Zyra this time around. They've banned it themselves.
Yeah, that's surprising to me. You would have thought that Tarzan would have wanted to go towards something like that again, unless Weibo say, all right, we tried the farming aspect before, maybe they try and find themselves against Sejuani or Maokai angle for themselves this time, and of course that is if the Lilia is banned, so you always take that Lilia. No, okay, all right, different option. They're trying to ban away some of the faster clear junglers and say, all right, maybe they can go towards something a bit more early proactivity in terms of getting into lanes rather than that farming power. Other things which are importantly available right now, we do have, of course, stuff like the Renekton again for the top lane. You can also look towards stuff like the Ezreal too. Very powerful pick across both these teams.
Ezreal exceptionally potent. It still surprises me to see these Nidalee bans after what Weibo did to Nidalee in their previous series. It really does surprise me, but Ashe has made it on through. And that means Light can very happily slam that one. Could also be flexed to Crisp, but would expect that to be seen in Light's pocket.
And now we have Ashe Braum on the table. Braum loves to be played with Ashe because he can't bring that same kind of engage that other supports do. Ashe does that for him. They combo up incredibly well. So I'd now be expecting maybe even like a triple Freljordian lock-in of having the Ashe and then Braum and Sejuani. They can look towards any of these kind of options too. Now the Renekton's been locked in for Bin though. That's going to be another power point for him. Breathe did play that Gragas into it. Did fine in the individual matchup, I guess, in terms of those side lanes. So maybe he can hold his pick for a little bit later if he has stuff like the Kennen, the Gragas, and the Gnar all available to go into that Renekton. He doesn't necessarily have to pick that now.
You could go all Freljordian here. You could also go Game of Thrones and go a Song of Ice and Fire. Go for the Brand in the jungle. Alongside, you got Icy bot lane. Plenty of options available for Weibo. We'll see what direction they do want to go.
We're still in Season 2. It's Game 2, so that's a great thing to go for right now.
Yeah, honestly.
Just make sure we don't have like a best of 8.
Wait a second. No, we're not. We're in Season 14. We're slightly behind on that one. And to be honest, maybe it's one of those things where, you know, a lot of TV shows kind of dip in the middle. They start to lose their way, and then it brings it back at the end. You know, maybe we're in the good seasons again. I feel like it's been a pretty good season.
we'll get back to that when we get through the entire year. We'll see how that goes through. As when we do look at that Braum, the Ash Braum, very, very powerful. We knew that was likely to get locked in. For going that jungle pick and going towards Xiaohu on that Zeri again, who's been really, really prioritizing this. Did get picked out a lot in side lanes in that last game, which we didn't expect him to, but I think that's more credit to BLG's play than Xiaohu's own.
Will the Ziggs be locked in, or will it be that Ezreal for the side of BLG? I'd love to see the Ziggs again. I think it's such a strong pick. And I just love watching Elk play it as well. I feel like he's so good with those skill shots. I mean, the chunk he got on Light in the mid lane against an Ezreal, just slamming every single hit. And Elk will go for that Elkenheimer again. And we'll see what the bans are going to be now. As your bot lane is in, your mid lane is in, but jungle still undecided, and immediately Ivan taken off the board.
Wouldn't surprise me if they ban away the Sejuani in the next lock-in as well. Worth noting, BLG could also put that Maokai down to support, pick a jungle on 4 if they have another takeaway they want to do as well, and then allow themselves to have last pick for Knight. That doesn't matter as much because you've already got this area on the other side. But if they really want to be mean to Tarzan, you could double ban jungle, flex the Maokai down to support, pick another jungler, so it's effectively a triple ban. But hey, unlikely because they can get themselves that last pick jungle counter pick to give way, or rather the last pick. Actually, no, it doesn't even matter. They're not even going to be counter pick on this one. But they can still really try to remove some champions from Tarzan here. All the same, that is the Sejuani takeaway.
So trying to shut down Tarzan and Weibo. Trying to just set up for a solid bottom lane, getting rid of the Rel, just trying to remove things that are going to be exceptionally good alongside that Ziggs. Like you say, the Maokai technically a flex. I don't really expect that to be going down to the bottom side though, to be honest. Would anticipate Wei taking that into the jungle, especially with an MVP performance in the first game. Rakan taken off the board to deny On's probably his signature pick, really.
One of many. We actually have a lot of good Rakan players in the LPL, so that one is very much a signature of many players in our role. So now you see the champions being hovered over for that support role. Look, none of these are going to do great into Braum in that support role. You do need a support which can combo up with the Ziggs. You are looking at the Leona and the Alistair, but Braum really does counter them. This will very much be Elkin on soaking as much golden XP from the first few waves as they can, because it is going to be a bit of a torrid 2v2.
We'll see how they fare against that Ash Braum that is just so obnoxious to deal with in the first few levels. And now Weibo have to lock in that top side. They already know that they're against a Renekton and a Maokai, so they have all the information in the world. And still, a few carry junglers available if they do want to go AP. I was about to say Brand Karthus. And it will be Tarzan slamming that Karthus for himself. And Bin might get a taste of his own medicine. The Gnar into Renekton is a matchup Bin loves to play out. Breathe. He's been playing just as long as Bin has. He's got plenty of experience in the matchup himself.
Yeah, so Breathe has options. He played the Gragas the last time. He can go towards the Gnar, can go towards the Cannon. Does lock in the Gnar. So Gnar going to be someone that can... very much battle of that Renekton. It is a skill matchup, but it's one which typically goes slightly towards the Gnar's way, depending on how good that Gnar player is. So, last pick for Knight. Wouldn't surprise me to see him go towards this Corki again. Makes a lot of sense. It's fine into the Zeri, and you've got a strong, strong front line to keep Valkyring forwards and having them as your bulwarks there.
I mean, it looked great in the previous game. Very quiet early game, explosive end to the game. As I think Knight got like 8 kills within the last 8 minutes or something crazy. Incredible performance in those team fights. And I like that BLG are essentially just running it back. Ever so slight change in the support position, but aside from that, exactly the same composition as the last time around. And Weibo are the ones that have completely changed things up. They needed a new angle and they found it.
They get themselves that Ash Braum, very powerful duo. And of course, if that arrow starts landing on people, then you have the Braum passive follow-up, you have Zeri flying over the wall, you have Karthus calling in the Requiem artillery down to someone's head as well. BLG do need to be very, very careful not to get caught too out of position. The Alistair can shrug off the Ash arrow, no one else can. So watch out for how they're playing around their front line, how they're playing around, particularly when that Ash arrow comes online, and the threat they can have with the big combos.
I'm looking towards the Maokai as well. I want to see a twisted advanced dodge where you kind of go underneath that arrow. I don't know if that might be too specific of an ask, to be honest, but we'll also see how Tarzan's going to do on the Karthus. It's one of those picks that really can individually take over a game. Tarzan's been looking fantastic this year. It does feel like Wei had the better of him in game number 1 on that Maokai, and Wei has gone for the Maokai once again. Let's see if Tarzan can get that ball rolling, but I'm looking towards the bottom lane of Light and Crisp. They've got an incredibly potent 2v2. Light especially has been one of the most stalwart members of this roster all year long. Let's see if the 2v2 can finally go in their favor. This second game feels like it's going to be a test for Weibo, doesn't it? Because, you know, losing the first game of the series, fair enough. But when you swap sides to that blue side and you completely change your strategy coming in, like, you've then got to show that it was worth it. You've then got to show that you got more in the tank, and you're against the very best in the league. You're against the reigning champs that want to make a repeat of that fact. And we'll see what Weibo have cooked up for us.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better things of a best of 5. I think League of Legends as a game shines in best of 5s because you get multiple chances to make these kind of calls, make a big strategy shift and say, all right, last thing wasn't working, let's try something different. Weibo have done that right here. They have walked in with a Braum level 1. And of course with the Karthus, it's not the Zyra, but it's still very, very fast at clearing through jungle camps. It's one of the best things about Karthus throughout his entire history as a jungler. Of course, I say his entire history as a jungler. Of course, he used to be one of the OG lane picks as well.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, but he's had a couple of years at this point where we'll know that their invaders come through. Both junglers have good information on each other's pathing. Tarzan will know that Wei is heading into his jungle. Flash in.
Flash from Crisp. Gets Elk's own flash out. I'm not sure if... I guess that's good because, I mean, Crisp can jump in fairly easily using his W in a lot of situations. We'll see how that progresses.
I think that does make a big difference here if Tarzan can get himself down towards the hang on, breathe.
Breathe! Getting completely outplayed by Bin as he flashes in for the Q, but he's not quite in range. Can't finish the kill.
Well, this top lane is touted as a skill matchup. Depends how good you are at it. Breathe just about lives. He has to recall, has to get himself a teleport back towards this top side. Means his first back of the game isn't going to be great. He's going to get himself, what, like a potion or a refill pot? I don't even know how much he's... But yeah, he gets a refill pot. They might try and dive him. He does potentially get enough rage off of this. If he gets level 3, I think the dive is off. I think he is going to get that. So it should just be about safe.
All right. I think maybe Wei hanging around just in case Tarzan was doing any shenanigans and trying to move up to the top side. Not sure. Either way, it will be Breathe surviving. It's his TP already used, though, as Bin heads back to base. He crashed a massive wave, so he knows he can safely just walk back up to that top lane's TP advantage for BLG.
Tarzan returning back to enemy jungle after he gets himself a couple of camps on his own side. Wei did manage to take the entire... Well, no, not the entire quadrant, because I believe Tarzan managed to get his own wolves, so that's definitely going to be a nice little extra bit for Tarzan. This is one of the things we've seen about particularly Maokai versus farming junglers. Your early pathing on the Maokai side of that matchup needs to be really quite chiseled. If you do miss out on an extra camp more than you should do, if you don't quite manage to get yourself the extra XP in the early game, the farming jungler, whether that's a Lilia, a Zyra, or in this case a Karthus, can just take over the entire map very, very quickly. So really now looking at Wei to say, okay, you managed to take those camps from topside. How are you going to continue to keep yourself in the game before Tarzan starts to really take over? You almost got a Flame Horizon in that last game. It didn't matter, which does... Of course, you don't always have to be there in terms of your farm level there, but you do need to be somehow impacting the map before this Karthus really gets a lot of value.
Yeah. We'll see if Wei can find that influence. He keeps on trying to move up towards this top side. Breathe will be stunned. Has his flash available, though. I don't anticipate this will lead to a kill here. Wei ends up sort of wasting his time. His chickens are up, and I think that's the direction he'll head in now. And as you say, Tarzan, very happy to see Wei waiting around in that top side. Are they really going to try and force a dive?
He might flash over, try and get the empowered something here. Here he goes.
Okay, the stun into the root, into the knockback, into the kill. First blood for Bin.
Nah down, no teleport. Bin gets himself the advantage, and Wei gets his impact on the map. We were just talking about this beforehand. When you're on the Maokai side of this matchup versus one of these AP carries, you got to get something done. You're not going to be able to keep up and farm. You need to make sure that you get yourself some impact somewhere on the map. He gets himself an assist into that top lane kill, which can very much flip this matchup. If Renekton stays ahead of that, it can get really, really bad. There's going to be a plate potentially over here too with the amount of ranged minions hitting. This Bin is a very, very happy Crocodile.
And he still has TP, if he even needs it. I mean, that's a pretty big wave that's underneath the tower. He might not even need to TP. I feel like you probably just do at this point anyway, because, I mean, how much are you really losing? We'll see if he's going to commit to that one, and there we go. Joins the lane again. Tabby's already.
Yeah, so one of the big things about using teleports as a solo laner now, you kind of, this is about the last time you want to do it, because if you leave it any later, the first kind of few minutes of unlocked teleport are not going to be available to you because it's on cooldown. You want to use it around about, you know, the 4 or 5 minute mark if you can. Get yourself a good first back, because end of the day, it's not like you can use it to go across the map too easily to anything else, because you can't use that teleport in the same way you did multiple years ago, of course. That's one of the other big changes that's come through to League, which is racked up as, yeah, Bin, buddy. You've got yourself that lead. The double ward isn't actually helping you, though. Didn't know if you knew that one.
Yeah. Misses the brush on the first one, unfortunately, I think. There's Wei moving up. Bin's got a massive wave pushing towards him. I'm not sure this is a set of grubs that BLG can realistically fight. Xiaohu moves in and Crisp has roamed up as well. There will just be 3 grubs, I think, going the way of Weibo. Wei realizes this, tries to move down towards that bottom side instead, and will hopefully look to trade for a Drake.
Wei gonna potentially get himself Scuttle Crab here. Wei has got no flash, and he's walking up against an Ashe Braum. Here comes On, though.
Oh, great flash from Light. He knew that was coming. And Crisp happy to block all of the damage. They send BLG away. No prio bot, no prio top means no objectives for BLG.
Close run stuff. Great flash out from Light. That could have actually been a kill. If Chris manages to tag a Q onto the flashless Maokai, that could have been a kill there too. And you can see now the problem is, Wei, he went for a huge old play. Yes, Chris getting chunked down, but look at Tarzan's XP. Level 6 to level 4 from Wei. Level and a half up, almost 2 levels up onto this Maokai. This is the problem with this kind of matchup. The Maokai is going to fall behind here. You need to make sure you're careful of this now. Karthus is going to put out so much more damage than the Maokai can ever hope to answer.
Yeah, he will fall behind. The question is how far, and the answer right now seems to be extremely, as Tarzan moves through to look for more. Xiaohu's just going to get the kill. Hunter Wei abandoned by his team and taken out by the invade of Weibo. Very nicely played.
So, Wei is not going to be a point of power this time. Had himself that MVP from game 1. This is going to be a very, very hard game for the jungler of BLG. Got Tarzan now, who's going to be farming up a Storm. And I think the problem now for BLG is, can you stop Weibo from getting towards a powerful point where Tarzan is farming up massively, and also you have these Ashe arrows coming out from the middle of nowhere. I think as soon as those Ashe arrows start coming online, I think BLG are going to stop being really, really afraid.
I don't know what it is, but watching Corki trade just never gets old to me in the way that, like, all other champions these days have, like, crazy animations and stuff. Corki just, like, walks at you and stands still and wins the trade for it. It's like...
Do you remember that one Star Wars parody by Family Guy? They did that for episode 4. It's like, oh yeah, we can outrun this Star Destroyer. Yeah, you know, like I'll show you the moves I've got. Did you just slowly drift to the left?
Yeah,
that's all the movements I got.
Oh my god, is he listing lazily to the left? I do remember that one. It's a classic. It's a classic.
It is.
Something dark side.
Yeah, apparently George Lucas really enjoyed that too. So it was a loving parody. It wasn't laughing at the movie. It was laughing. No, it did laugh at it sometimes, but it was laughing with it too at other points. Yeah, did a healthy amount of both.
Oh dear, that feels like a long time ago, because it was a long time ago.
It probably was. Yeah.
Everyone in chat now suddenly either feeling very old or wondering what on earth we are talking about. Probably more of the latter. I don't know. Family Guy's not that old. Either way, BLG being challenged a little bit in this early game, and it's great to see. It's good to see Weibo coming back in this game number 2, not just falling behind in the same way. And just look at that lead that Tarzan has in the jungle. That is absolutely obscene. The 35 CS lead at this point in the game. That's only going to get worse, and especially if Weibo starts to take some towers down and Wei loses control of his own jungle. I mean, that will... we're well on the way to a Flame Horizon. We're only 30 CS up right now, but if Weibo do take control of the map, it feels inevitable.
And he gets himself Blackfire Torch in his first pack. So he's not going towards the Leandries. He wants himself a little bit more cooldown reduction on that first item without going towards the Malignance. He has gone for the Dark Harvest, hasn't gone towards the First Strike. We saw a game just the other day which was First Strike, Malignance first. We're just spamming ultimates and trying to get that First Strike on cooldown. Blackfire Torch, I'd say I don't love the item. I do just feel if you're going to go towards a burn, I can just go Leandries. But this one at least gives you some extra mana and some extra cooldown reduction for the brief moments where you do need that from the jungle.
Certainly can help, and like you say, that bit of CDR can make all the difference. On now trying to move in alongside Wei as they start grubs up on this top side. This time around, Bin didn't freeze the wave, or not fan out the wave at least. And it will mean BLG are the ones here first. Tarzan's in the area, as is Xiaohu. Toying with the idea of contesting, but I'm not sure that this is a pit they can really get involved in right now. Crisp just arriving on the scene. Tries to get out tonight. It might be able to force a flash on that top side. And in the meantime, Breathe is just going to go down.
That was a sick punish by Odd. As soon as Breathe pops his head over, it's like, oh yeah, got a ward on this Alistair. Surely I can get some poke out. Nope, you are within flash pull range. Gets himself booted back into the team. Great punish from On. On has been probably one of the biggest players for BLG in terms of the criticism leveled at them. On has had a lot more off performances than On in this summer compared to what we usually know of him, but he has, of course, that huge upper ceiling as well. Great punish from him. See if he can continue to do that through this game. So Weibo lose themselves those grubs. They leave themselves a kill and Breathe. He did just die. Are we just gonna give him the old Dyrus treatment?
He's got flash available. TP comes through from Night. Breathe, you're going nowhere, my friend. Instant engage, and look at him just get one shot. Even the locket comes through from Wei to shield away all of the turret damage. And it's Elk that TP'd, sorry, not Knight. So that will be one dead tower.
Yeah, they've got the grubs. It's not 6 grubs this time, but it is still Ziggs. And Alkenheimer once again online in a cinema near you, I guess, as BLG looks to really start accelerate through that. It's gone for the Seraphs this time, so different itemization from him, which means that he's going to be much more safe to some of the aggressive plays.
Oh, Light takes a bad trade, but Bin's out of cooldowns. We'll have to back away for a minute here, and On moving over as Crisp was potentially looking for a bit more pressure, but Control Ward denies any vision. And Wei's moving down to this bottom side of the map as well, so I imagine the action will diffuse here, but not a single plate was taken by Light, despite him trying to trade opposite.
And he had himself a couple of grubs there too. We're doing really nice to get something, because Weibo multiple times now across this game, and then of course the last game where it's much more apparent, they're losing out on those cross maps. They're losing out on just the strong side where they're trying to go towards. BLG are making an even trade, and that's a problem, because that means that BLG gets to kind of trade a good play for themselves with like an okay trade on the other side. It's okay, because they managed to just get a little bit more out of both sides of the map than what they really should be doing. Weibo, I think they've done really well at getting Tarzan into the game. I think Tarzan's pathing and the way he's gotten ahead on individual level is very strong, but this is a huge issue now that suddenly Ziggs is very much online, and that Renekton is a huge issue. Tarzan isn't able to carry this game alone. He needs other strong members to stand in front of him and allow him, one, positioning on the map, and two, positioning in team fights. The Karthus cannot be a one pillar alone in a team fight.
I mean, the fact that somehow Tarzan is only 100 gold ahead, despite being practically double the CS of Wei, is really something else. BLG now looking for a fight. Crisp, the target, who tries to disengage with his ultimate, tries to block the damage onto Tarzan. There's only so much you can block, and Tarzan down to 400, walking away with his life. But Knight is behind the play, but he's outnumbered as Xiaohu is doing the same on the opposite side. Knight gets into the pit, but I think he's stuck. No flash available. The volley sets up for the Requiem, and the mid laners will fall on both sides of the fight.
How that ends up in a 1-for-1 is beyond me, but it somehow works out. I thought Tarzan was dead, so right, he ended up getting hit by the Maokai ult and got comboed onto, but doesn't go down. So Weibo, they do get themselves an even fight there. It's now going to be a trade of Dragon for potentially two lanes of pressure for Weibo. We'll see whether Breathe can finish off that turret up in that top side. I think with no teleports from BLG, that is likely to happen. However, on the other side, BLG, they are going to be able to answer with that bot lane outer turret at the same time. So BLG, they don't get the clean play they wanted this time. They've typically been getting them, but they are still going to get themselves that extra tower on that bot side too. So, starts off with a good ult from Chris, but this is a problem here. He hops to try and block the Malkel, and Tarzan has a bit of a mind blip there as he walks into another tendril instead, so he still gets hit. And I thought the team fight would be over there. I thought Tarzan would just die and that could be the end of it, but manages to flash over, get into Knight there too, whereas Xiaohu also, if we're looking at both mid laners, goes on a little bit of a journey too far.
I mean, it was like nicely played by Weibo to punish Knight for his deep TP. You know, Light stays there, ults him, etc. But it also means that then you've not got your AD carrier as a part of the rest of the fight. And similarly, Xiaohu threatening on the opposite side, saves Tarzan, but answers with his own life. Messy fight, chaotic fight at least. And BLG find themselves a gold advantage as they look for a Herald as well as that Drake that they got for themselves. They were even in grubs. And they've got this Ziggs that is going to start really working away at these towers. And it does feel like a game that, in the early game, was all about Weibo. Suddenly, is starting to slip away from them.
Saw this a little bit in game 1 too, where Weibo managed to stall out the game and at least extend it a little bit. Of course, it didn't matter when BLG walked away with a million dragons and then stole the Baron away from them too. That was probably not the best part of that game for Weibo, but as we go into this one, very interested to see if we're going to get ourselves a genuinely proper team fight. We had quite a lack of them in game 1. It wasn't really about 5v5s. It's all about macro and setting up. I actually want to see a full 5v5 this time, particularly when you have a Karthus who is this strong. I want to see whether Tarzan can get himself some really big damaging team fights.
Yeah, no DPS Requiems just yet. They've all been generally end-of-fight Requiems. That Blackfire Torch headed towards Leandries as well. Big chunk onto light there from Elk. I love the way that LPL Ziggs pretty much just blast that all out and go down as soon as somebody looks hittable. The R button is immediately smashed. BLG try and get these waves under control. I think the biggest story, honestly, of this game is the fact that this Gnar was picked up for Breathe, but with Wei's influence in that top side, Bin is, 1,500 gold ahead in the matchup.
Yeah, and he got given that full tower alongside Elk kind of coming up for that satchel charge. Renekton can cause a lot of issues. Big fight towards the bot side now. Here comes the arrow.
Oh, arrow's not quite going to land. Phase Rush saving the day once again for Wei. That is one speedy tree, making palms look slow. Because it turns out they are slow.
Yeah, it turns out they only move 20 meters a year. Yeah, that's not quite the same as this one. No objectives up just yet. Weibo needs to be a little bit careful retreating through from this river. Of course, the Dragon Pit's not exactly easy to get away from. Xiaohu, a little bit easier for him to play in these side lanes in this game compared to that last one. Game 1, where BLG were really punishing Xiaohu in that side lane. Weibo much better at moving towards the lane. This time you see that the spectators were actually highlighting that ward there. If there was an overextension from Weibo, there could have been a huge teleport coming through. BLG always threatening those big decisive teleports with Herald coming through. Not just do that, but actually Weibo pulled the trigger first.
Deep TP comes through from Breathe as he turns Mega Gnar, but I don't know if he's really going to have a way in. And Alistair's so good at denying that engage as well. Herald comes through, and the wave will be cleared from distance by Elk. Elk was basically towards the mid lane as he throws that ult as well, so he clears mid and bot simultaneously.
That is some peak 2014 League of Legends. For those that miss Season 4, the reason Barabuff is the way that it is basically because of Ziggs doing stuff like this, where you think you've got an ability to push in a side lane. Nope, Ziggs ult, that's it, wave's gone. There are reasons why we try to close out the game with big game-ending objectives like that nowadays. BLG, they do manage to get themselves that bot lane turret. That Ziggs ult actually is quite important there because it means that Weibo can't push in with another wave to try and answer and guide towards that bot side. So BLG, despite the fact that they haven't blown open this game in the way that they did that first game, at least eventually they managed to blow open that first game, they are still getting themselves slight advantages, and another Markel is going to push the tempo forwards.
Xiaohu has to stick around because of the roots, and now the dive kicks off. Look at that damage. On, get an auto in. Okay, Elk finishes the job. Thought he was going to walk away for a second. That's another tower taken. BLG are so decisive.
Xiaohu picked off on a side lane again. We praised him for it. That's an Ash arrow. I'm not sure that's going to lead to that much. It is onto On. He has flash and ult. I don't really think there's a play there. So Weibo, once again, their counterpunch is really lacking. BLG more decisive, and they're using this Maokai ultimate to force plays really readily.
Elk with quite aggressive positioning here, but On's there to protect him. Elk just has no fear, does he? I'm not sure I've ever seen Elk positioned defensively in the last, like, 3 years. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, in his entire career, back when he was Jomog, he wasn't exactly famous for his defensive positioning, was he? Yeah, I mean, insane stuff coming out from BLG. I can't believe quite the lead that they've built for themselves, considering how that early game seemed to be going for Weibo. Bin uses that dominance just to threaten in the mid lane and defends that tower as Knight pushes in the top side. It does mean Weibo get a chance to get on the Drake again.
So Wei gonna walk down towards the spot side, no support, so he's just gonna do a bit of a safari, watch the wildlife, sees that dragon go down. Xiaohu will finally break open the bot lane out of turret. It has been delayed for a while though. BLG have been making sure it's not had easy access towards that turret. Still good gold for the side of Weibo. Thing which we need to be really aware of now, Maokai ult completely changes the game when it's off cooldown. We've seen that multiple times when it's come through to these big sieges. Wei has his ultimate back up again now, just came back off of cooldown. BLG, they have that big go button again. I think particularly they will be looking at the next inner turret and just seeing exactly what they can get. They don't even necessarily need themselves a Baron to start looking towards them. They can really just start forcing the plays.
And I think the really interesting thing about the way that BLG play is they so readily group up in between waves, right? They push those waves out, and it's like, you know, that's kind of the core of side laning is you push your wave out and then you go group for a second. But usually that's like sides coming to the mid lane. It feels like with BLG, they do it in all directions, and that is a deep, deep TP from Bin. Tarzan, the target, and the target is down. Assassination from BLG. There's ults onto On. But that Locket saves the day. Xiaohu trying to finish the job. Bin trying to protect his support. And protect him he will. As Wei then dives on in. And Knight looks for revenge. How dare you try and kill the cow. Elk now in a 1v3. Satchels away as Breathe looks to punish anything. But the Brawl stacks are gone. And On surviving the prior play arrives to save his AD carry. Breathe finds nothing. BLG are invincible.
Weibo find nothing, BLG find everything. They are the decisive team with these teleports. They are the decisive team of pulling the trigger. And once again, everything comes up BLG. They'll take themselves this Baron, and they'll take themselves absolutely firmly the driving seat in this game if they weren't already in it. They can use this to start pushing out the map. They weren't already doing that already, and they'll be able to use this to tide over into the next dragon as well. BLG, I am just in awe at how decisive they have been. This has been a good, clean couple of games of League of Legends from them, which hasn't been something we've seen consistently from them in Summer. This is a great look from our reigning champions.
I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. This initial assassination on Tarzan is just like, set up the CC, and in comes the bombs and the rockets.
On has been so good at getting these really quick plays again. The whole team, quick teleports, but also the quick responses. The Locket comes in to saves him, the backstep on the Q. On, buddy, he's back. This guy's had a lot of criticism from me and a lot of others over the course of the year, but the decisive play, not just from the Analyst, from Wei as well, just continually catching these weird oversteps from Weibo has been really powerful and consistent. The fact that they're surviving by these margins too means they can just improvise their way through the back end of team fights. This should not be possible, but BLG make it happen.
Oh, it's so fun to watch BLG team fight, isn't it? They're just too good. And Xiaohu's got underneath the tower. Bin flashes for it and will find the stun. He'll find the kill, and he'll find himself alone in a 1v3. The rest of the gang on the way, and Sterix will save the day. Bin turns it around onto Breathe and chases him into the base. Breathe is the one retreating as Chris falls. How do they never die?
I have no idea. Look, sometimes I think BLG are the Picasso of League of Legends. They understand the rules of the game. They understand how to break them too. They are improvisers in so many of these games. They just somehow make this work. Tarzan's caught out now as well. He can't even get back to his base. Knight checking out these brushes with Boss Bomb. BLG, blink and you miss it. Again, the game has just evaporated away from Weibo.
It's going to be a mid-tower. Tarzan looking for a 1v1 on Knight, feeling confident. And he'll take it as well. A TP used by Xiaohu just to make sure. And perhaps a chance for Weibo to turn things around here. With Knight dead for 40 seconds, what can they get on the map?
That's a good question. Breathe doesn't have flash, does have Mega coming up just now.
On perhaps overzealous on this engage. Requiem going to come through for good measure as well. And now with a second pick, perhaps a bit of a snowball starting to roll for Weibo. Tempo all in their favor. Drake coming up in 30 seconds and an arrow onto Elk as well. Wait, trying to play bodyguard here, but he doesn't have an Alistair ultimate, but he does have a Croc alongside him. Bin turns it around. Elk out of mana though, but it's still a 3 for 3.
It's a 3 for 3 after we were just praising BLG for having 2 clean games in League of Legends. Wow, we haven't seen that as much in summer. Yeah, because they're just as likely to do stuff like this across the Ascension stage and the group stage before that. BLG having a bit of a happy moment. Yes, they are improvising. They're typically very good at that. But sometimes the jazz rhythm of this music will sometimes not conform to clean League of Legends. They do manage to get themselves back on the map, but aren't going to get themselves that dragon afterwards. BLG should still be able to get themselves the second of the game. That probably should have been a Death Baron. That probably should have been the end of the game. Doesn't quite end up being that, though, as BLG will have to wait a little bit longer. Weibo, they walk away with some bloody lips, but they just about survive up to this point. Starts with another Maokai ult. I mean, this Maokai ult is completely game-changing. And managed to cash out Xiaohu again.
I thought he was doomed there when he didn't quite get the auto through, but then here, like the fact he survives this, 3 of them hitting away, the stun comes in, but Hysterics just soaks so much damage, and then Breathe turns Mini. I mean, what can Breathe do against a Dominus Renekton as Mini Gnar?
3 levels down as well, by the way. Somewhat helps a little bit when you have such ridiculous base damage. You see that again here too, level 16. I mean, you know, he has himself that max level of the Dominus. Turns out the damage over time is actually quite nice there too. Gets himself a lot. He does end up getting taken down, but you know, when you lose Tarzan too, the most powerful person on your own team, that's always going to suck. BLG now just get ready to set up for another push in, maybe get themselves another opening hit.
And I have to say, like, if Light doesn't have flash there, I think that's just a 1 fight for BLG. Like, Light being able to get away from the Croc, get over that wall is the only reason that goes even for Weibo. 9 spots. The arrow coming. Valkyrie's away, keeps himself alive. It's a 7,000 gold lead. Well, 6.5, I guess. 1,000 gold lead for the side of BLG. They've exploded this game now. And Breathe finally gets a chance to push out in a side lane, get some gold for himself. I mean, that 700 gold has now minimized the lead that Bin has to only 3,000 individually.
Wow. Yeah, definitely
even, right?
not. Yeah, definitely not an item and a half behind or something like that. That has been game-changing, because when we were looking through the draft, we were saying, hey, there are actually really good aggressive options here from Weibo, because you have the Ashe Braum, you hit an arrow, follow up with the Braum passive, and then the Karth Assault comes through. We've never really got to see that, because BLG have monstered the map. Bin starts winning these side lanes. I think Bin, he was in with a shout for me for MVP of the league. I think Tien's been fantastic, and he absolutely deserves that. But Bin is still such a massive player for his team, and you know, he's got a huge amount of XP here. Breathe needs to be so careful in this 1v1. Bin has been controlling the map so hard that Weibo can't look for those aggressive engages. And BLG, they can do what the heck they want in these side lanes.
Now even looking for just enemy red buffs at this point, continuing to layer the pressure in. And you're right, Bin has had an absolutely phenomenal year for himself. 5 MVPs across the course of the summer. Not that impressive of a number compared to the league overall, but that's because, you know, Elk also got 6, Knight also got 5, On also got 3. Like, it's steep competition within this team to grab MVPs when you've got a super team like this. And ultimately, today was a bit of a clash of somewhat super teams, right? Knight and Wade joining this BLG roster, and Weibo being put together. Some massive names across this list. All of them either winning trophies or getting damn close over their careers. And it feels like BLG, they are looking for that second trophy. They've only got 1 so far, Elk On at least. And they're hoping for a second this year. And so far this series, they are feeling like championship form. Bin caught in the mid lane, the Requiem sets up for a potential pick as the rest of the squad just evaporate crisp. Baron gone, Bin still survived, by the way, as he turns it back around on Breathe, and here comes Knight to finish the job. Red buff slow is more than enough to finish another BLG. They're just styling on Weibo. This is a straight up victory lap at this point. Light will be caught out as everybody barrels on into the play, and BLG show everyone how it's done.
Weibo have been vitrified, turned to glass and shattered by BLG. They'll march in. It took them an extra Baron, but it's all BLG. All game long here, 2 games down.
Weibo are just glass waiting to be smashed, to quote Eric, as Weibo fall underneath their towers. Xiaohu desperately trying to survive, but he won't even be allowed to get onto his fountain. BLG, they make these fights look easy. This has been somewhat brutal in the first 2 games as BLG remind the world that they are the first seed.
See whether BLG can close this series out cleanly for themselves, but I'm getting a little bit scared for the rest of the top 4, Joe, because BLG, I thought there was an opening here. I thought they weren't looking as good as they were in spring, and I thought that maybe there was an option for some other teams to make a break towards that title. BLG looked great today. They looked really, really good today. And on the other side, I think that Tarzan has had some good games himself, and I think that he has been a real star for Weibo. The entirety of their kind of winning streak, their uptick in form throughout the second half of this summer, but it is just not enough against this monstrous BLG, which seems to have woken up and just completely locked in.
At risk of speaking too early and ruining everything, BLG playoffs comes alive. Knight in another team that loses a lot of silly games during the split and then gets to playoffs and dominates. BLG looking fantastic. Weibo have to find something. We're going to jump into a break and find out if Weibo can fight back or if this is just BLG through and through. Welcome back, everybody, to the LPL. Welcome back to what I promised was going to be a banger to start our top 4, but so far has been a bit of a slacking from BLG. I'm joined by Nymera as we head towards game number 3, and we look at a Weibo that dismantled NIP. It looked like a serious contender coming in, but have been absolutely destroyed so far by BLG.
It has felt like Tarzan and a bunch of other players who are just not meeting the level individually of BLG's. I think that Tarzan has managed to get himself really onto the board, and I think he is still playing really well on the whole. But I do think that particularly top lane's been an issue. I think that mid lane is becoming an issue too. I haven't really been that positive on Knight throughout this summer. I think he's had a very weak split for his own standards, but he's come alive here in this series, and I think that Xiaohu has been very much caught out a lot more than he was in previous series.
Yeah, Xiaohu's had a rough series. Knight certainly hasn't, though. He's enjoying just slapping this Corki every game and cleaning up fights. Elk, again, just getting insane damage down. But for me, it was Bin that was really the highlight when he's playing up against a supposed counter pick, but Wei moved up to that top side, set Bin up, and boy, did Bin do a lot with that gold.
It just completely snowballed. Eventually, it just got to the point where BLG were much, much more punishing. Way, way better at just getting huge flash plays coming in. This fight you had On flashing forward, then Wave flashing forward, then On surviving, getting through for this disengage, breathes that overextended. You just can't play these fast and loose fights versus BLG. BLG, the way that I phrased it in that game, it feels like they're kind of sometimes the Picasso of League of Legends, where they just do weird stuff you don't quite understand, but they understand their own rules, their own internal rules. It's not classics all the time, but they just know how to piece together all of these different bits and pieces of their team composition to make something genuinely very entertaining to watch. And yeah, Ben here is like, well, you know, I've got a 3-level advantage in Sterix. I should be doing some more aggressive plays like this. And he absolutely monsters the back end of that fight as he continues to do so for the rest of the game.
Good arrow from Light here, but again, Bin, watch him in this one. If Light doesn't have flash there, I'm pretty sure all 3 of them die, and you know, that becomes a very one-sided play towards BLG, which when you consider the fact that Weibo was supposed to be winning this one. Weibo was supposed to win that early game. They did manage to get themselves, I think it was a 1,000 gold lead to start with, but didn't last very long, did it? As soon as BLG got their teeth into this one, suddenly everything started to look a little bit pear-shaped for Weibo. And it's just the way that they snowball, you know. Every single little pick turns into 9 kills and 3 towers.
And it's just, they always have another teleport. They're always just a couple of seconds faster. It's like the,
there's always
the intro to what, yeah, and there's always just another angle for Ben to go wreck your lane. It reminds me of, like, it's my favorite game, so I do reference it a lot. It's that opening scene to Halo Combat Evolved. I was sat down as a young kid. It's just, you know, did we escape them? No. They've always been faster. That one line, it replies here right to Ben and the rest of the team, always so good at just getting themselves into lanes at a better time. Wave flashing over the wall. You don't expect it. They're always there just a few seconds before you expect them. Yeah.
Really creative early game from Wei to answer the massive CS lead Tarzan was building. And, I mean, Bin, just safe hands. Safe hands in the top side. If you're going to give your gold to anyone on this team, give it to Bin, because he will use it. He will take over the game. These fights, fantastic on the Renekton. And, you know, blind Renekton has been something that has been criticized a lot in the LPL. But Bin showing why this is a priority for so many teams and what can happen with this pick if you can find that lead and find those good fights.
I think particularly we've had this conversation around 2 picks. It's been the Nidalee and it's been the Renekton. You must be this mechanically tall to ride the Renekton roller coaster. And I think in this case, Bin has shown that he's absolutely, you know, deserved of that presence on that pick. If he's allowed to blind pick it like that and you don't have answers, that's a problem for you. Now, it wouldn't surprise me to see people start to experiment with their counter picks here. We've kind of seen Breeze do that with when he played the Gragas first, and now he's played that Nart. I mean, he could still go towards the cannon, but at this point, you have now dropped 2 games now. You don't really have much left in the tank. Your next shot must hit, otherwise you're out here in this series. Of course, it's double elimination. We lock down to that lower bracket, but you lose this series here if you don't come up with a decent enough answer.
Do you know what's just hit me? Like a lightning bolt to the forehead. The only way that Weibo can win this series now is a reverse sweep. And do you know what would be the most Weibo thing ever? Would be to reverse sweep BLG to make it into the upper bracket finals.
Now you mention it.
Oh God, I'm trying my best not to speak it into existence. Let's see how the rest of this one goes down. I mean, BLG they've been comfortable in these last 2 games. I don't think that they've been pushed at all. And that is not just concerning for Weibo, it's concerning for whoever has to play against BLG next. Like, we don't even know what they have in reserve. We don't even know what other strategies are available for BLG. This is just them warming up.
Exactly. I mean, they play similar bot lane, same mid jungle. You know, they've just that last composition exactly the same. Besides that support, what are you actually learning as other teams here? Well, what we're learning is BLG are really good at League of Legends. We had a lot of doubts about them across summer. I think particularly when we looked at them dropping a series to LGD in groups, and they ended up having some weird losses across the Ascension stage too. We got some worries about them, but they are back being decisive. Their macro looks clean. Their individual play looks good. And BLG, they might just be back on the warpath.
Weibo on the blue side again. Let's see what changes, how they try and set this one up. This time they ban the Ashe instead of going for that as their first pick. But the Rumble and the Zyra still got Renekton taken away by BLG. Basically saying, look, you're banning the Ashe, you're going for the Renekton first pick. We know it, we're not letting you have it.
Yeah, we know what happens with that pick. So, what are we locking in? No Ashe this time. Do you go towards the Lilia? I think the Lilia is the obvious first pick here. It means that maybe you open up BLG to go towards something like the Ezreal on the other side, but surely you got to pick that one in. It's such a power pick here in the LPL.
And Tarzan, a player that can use it so efficiently as well. Excited to see what he's able to do with such a potent pick. BLG, I mean, they've not even been playing towards carry junglers, right? It's been Maokai both games so far. That is open and available, whether or not Wei wants to go in that direction again against the Lilia, but things like the Tristana are available, the Zeri. Corki again, Knight has enjoyed that both games so far. Oh, wow.
This is a very different style then. Cannon locked in for Bin. Blind pick Cannon. So, I don't think Cannon blind pick is a good thing. I think that you can counterpick this. However, when Bin is dumpstering Breathe this hard, I don't think it matters. Breathe, what's he going to go for now? I mean, typically you can see stuff like the Cassante and say, oh well, I'll just survive the lane matchup and try and get good team fights. You can occasionally get solo kill pressure, but the way that you counter the Cannon is typically by actually playing ADC's top lane and stuff like that. Mirwin over in the LEC showed us how to do that one just the other day versus G2 Esports. What do Weibo wants to do? Big team fight set up for that Cannon with the Maokai 2 is already quite concerning, even with just 2 picks locked in with BLG.
I mean, Bin, when he's blind picking Cannon in the top side, that's how you know he's confident in a matchup, isn't it? He's just exuding confidence in this draft already. Xiaohu goes for a Tristana, so a bit of a different look from the previous drafts where he's been playing on that Zeri, but the Zeri, to be honest, hasn't really been feeling like it's enough. So the Tristana and the Ezreal come through instead, and Knight is like, well, just because you don't want the Zeri doesn't mean Zeri's not a good pick. Might well lock that in for himself.
Make a lot of sense. It's just a big power pick in mid lane. LPL mid laners love Zeri, and they are very good at the Zeri. We've seen Rookie do magic on it. We've seen Xiaohu do it as well. But, you know, Knight, he has his options available to him, sees that Tristana, says, oh, what's that one matchup we've been playing this whole time? Oh, it's just Tristana Corki. Oh, I haven't played that for a while. Let's do it again for like the 70th time.
I mean, Knight just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. He'd already got 10 games on Corki before this series started. He was on an 80% win rate. He's got 2 more wins in that pocket. I mean, he's just loving the pick. I mean, look, when you can influence games the way he can on the pick, why not?
I know, but I'm tired, Joe. I'm tired seeing my mid lane role reduced.
I'll tell you what, you go back to bed, I'll take this one. Because I'm enjoying this. I don't care what they pick. I love watching BLG take over games.
That's, you know what? Wait, just because it's Xiaohu and Knight, I guess I'll stick around for this one. So we get ourselves some different bans coming through now. Is Weibo trying to ban out some of the more kill lane bot lanes that Elkanon can play out. They did ban out the Kai'Sa and the Kalista the last time they locked in the Ezreal and left BLG's 80 carry through to those later drafts. Whereas on the other side for BLG, banning out that Leona. Still probably want to ban out something a bit more engaging. They ban out the Braum instead. Could have maybe gotten rid of something like the Rel or the Alistair too, because Weibo don't have the best engage right now.
They certainly don't. They'll probably be looking towards that later on into the draft. We have seen some like full disengage comps across the course of the split, especially top esports like in the Braum for that sort of role, with a Cassante in that mix as well. Weibo just going to ban away the AD carries that will give Ezreal a hard time. What will Elk go for now? I mean, the Ziggs is still technically available. You do have a Kennen on the top side, so I'm not sure you really need a Ziggs.
Yeah, and I think you can do whatever you want. Now, what they might do is lock in Rel here and then choose their AD carry for the last pick, because now what they can do is they can go towards the Ziggs and just play really chill bot lane for a little bit for the early laning phase if they want, depending on what happens on the top side now. So Weibo, they're going to lock in support and they're going to lock in top lane. If this is a particularly nasty top lane matchup where Wei wants to path towards it, maybe Elk goes to something a bit more defensive. If it's something a bit more chill like a Kasanse, maybe we see them go towards a bit more of a kill lane towards them instead. So let's see what that top lane matchup is. They also have to lock in that support.
It's possible it's something like a Jhin as well, honestly, from Elk on this one. Like, it's something he's perfectly happy playing, and you've got plenty of damage elsewhere in the composition, so that's certainly not a concern for you. See what the direction is he ends up going. And now for that top lane pick, that fated answer to the Kennen. Breathe hovering a Jace for now.
So, Jace locked in. So, you have Jace, you have Lilia. They're both really strong early fighters on this top side. And now, actually, you do probably want to go towards something like a Jhin or that Ziggs. You called it there. You got that Jhin coming through. What it allows you to do is to play safely with that Jhin alone in bot side, and the Rel can go roaming elsewhere. And also means that Wei doesn't have to path towards this lane. They can get themselves some strong CB2s. When you have the Jhin locking the Alistair down with the W and then the extra engage comes through. I think BLG and Weibo, they are now both going to be really all eyes towards top lane, trying to see if they can get one of their top laners ahead. Top Esports tried to do this versus BLG in their series earlier in Summer Split. It was absolutely explosive. Both teams back then were just continually pathing towards that, and I see no reason to see a difference in this one. Arla carried a game with the Jace yesterday, but against Bin on Kennen, I don't know, it's a lot of lane domination you got to make your way through.
And hilariously, Kennen is Bin's most played top laner of the split. This will be his 10th game. He's got a 90% win rate on the pick. It's unstoppable in that top side. But Breathe is hoping to be the one to stop it. His first Jace game of the year, and he has to go up against Bin's Kennen. This will be the test for Breathe. He's been a player that's been criticized this year for not being able to carry when he's given one of those picks. He's given one of those picks in the game that matters the most. Here in Weibo's first matchup of the top 4, there's 0-2 down, and Breathe has it all in his hands.
So, BLG on the cusp of a 3-0 Weibo. We thought they could give us a series. They only have one chance to left as see whether they can do that right here. The last time these teams faced off in a best of 5, Weibo knocked BLG out of 2023 Worlds. We've waited a heck of a long time to see them back again in a best of 5 setting. This one has been all BLG. Weibo have kept us waiting.
The Gyos come in, and the sound of First Blood rings through the arena. Weibo, they've done the impossible so many times. They made it to Worlds Finals against all odds. But here, in the upper bracket, BLG start things off with a First Blood onto Elk as well.
So what ends up happening there, for those of you wondering if Chris was just running it or not, this is a team mistake from Weibo. If you're playing around ranged versus ranged top laners, what often determines the early levels is who gets the control of those top lane brushes. They can auto-attack, drop back out of vision, get out of vision so you can't auto-attack them back, and also drop minion aggro. Chris went up towards top lane to try and help Breed's lane. Weibo needed to do that as a group or not at all. He dies there because the team were just a bit disrespectful, and BLG, they stacked more members there. So BLG early advantage does cost them that ignite on, which might affect the bot lane laning phase, but you have a long sword, so that's definitely going to help out more.
Breathe trying to trade heavily with Bin, but Bin with vision in both of these brushes. That's exactly what's going on that top side. We'll see how Breathe does in this matchup. He was the one picking the Jace to answer this Kennen. We've got to keep our eyes on that top lane after how the last game went as well. But I'm looking elsewhere on the map as well. Lilia versus Maokai is definitely Lilia favored in terms of the early clear. We'll see what Tarzan can get done in this early game.
Well, Tarzan couldn't go for the level 1 Raptor Steal. That's really one of the most powerful points of Lilia versus, well, any jungle matchup. And in this one, it's one of the ways you can really get off the ground very early. He's not gone onto the other side of the Rift. BLG with that level 1 on top side meant that they couldn't really stick around, especially with that early kill going down. So sadly for Tarzan, who has been, as we've said multiple times through this series, really the person who's been standing up strong versus BLG, doesn't exactly have the easiest time here.
Nice little trade in the mid lane there from Xiaohu, but it's at the cost of a minion wave. Look how far behind in CS he is so far. Knight doing a phenomenal job in the first couple of levels to really punish Xiaohu on this Tristana pick. We'll even grab that cannon as well. So I'm very happy with how this lane has started in the mid lane. Xiaohu, after, honestly, the start of the year was really, really rough for him. It felt like throughout summer he was coming back into his own, but here today against Knight, that has not been what we're seeing.
It's been a little bit sad in that mid lane matchup because Xiaohu against NIP was genuinely great. He was so good at absorbing power on pressure on those side lanes, and he's had a lot better time of things so far in Plus Way, immediately pathing towards topside. We knew both junglers were heading towards topside. Here they come.
Tarzan's there as well. Breathe and Bin already sparring, and Breathe losing out the matchup's way just keeps Tarzan out of the mix. Breathe now low on HP as an engage on the bottom side. Chris tries to get onto Elk, but loses a lot of his own health in response. Exhaust on Elk will deny a lot of the answer, though.
On has his Ignite back in his back off cooldown, so definitely keep an eye on that 2v2. Lower HP bars means those skill trades start to open up. Both junglers went towards topside. We knew that there was very likely to happen there, but nothing really happens. Both flashes surviving this top lane as well. Sticking around longer. This is the Ignite.
Big damage onto Crisp. He's going to go down. He tries to turn it and does exactly that. Light finds himself the kill first. And both AD carries surviving now as they continue to spar, but Light should have an advantage. No, the root comes in, and the barrier! Elk diffs Light in the bottom side, and now Tarzan moves into the top lane as well. Way, chunked, Breathe. He's trying to get onto Bin, who's just pushing the wave relentlessly, but he's pushed too far forwards, and now has to flash, has to lightning rush, somehow getting away with his life. The knockback is there, and Bin survives. Xiaohu's moved into the top side. The bomb is on both. Wei will fall, and Bin has nowhere to go. Xiaohu corralling the BLG top laner. On's moving up, so is Knight, but I think they're going to be too late. Xiaohu, the target, has been just trying to dodge, but he goes down. Tarzan might just fall as well, as Knight gets one in response. Breathe, flashing to safety, and engage from Crisp as Xiaohu knocked up to stop the follow-up. This is chaos as Knight gets out of vision. Breathe drops a one, tries to finish the kill, but he can't quite do it. And Xiaohu now chased down by Bin under the tower to go, and Breathe is responded to. On now looking for Crisp. What is going on?
10 kills, 5 minutes. It has been the bloodiest early game of the entire series, and we have been left waiting for that one. BLG walk away with a couple of extra kills. Okay, let's try and make some sense of this. Right, where do we start? Xiaohu, 2-0 and 1, is behind in that CS, but draws himself even there. Elk has 3 kills, by the way. That's probably the biggest story of this. Has that first blood, and then that 2v2 comes around here. But BLG aren't stopping. Remember, they are so good at improvising, so good at using these messy map states, and I don't think Breathe is getting any help here. He could get dove. It's a massive wave to lose if he dies.
Oh, this is brutal. Breathe still level 5. A TP immediately comes through from Xiaohu. And he will save his top laner, but he loses a wave or two in the mid lane for it. He's 20 CS down already. Tarzan trying to start a fight, but just gets engaged on himself. Bin trying to get into the mix, and Xiaohu gets damaged down, but Bin gets in the brush. Xiaohu finds the kill, finds the reset. Breathe dives in onto On, so does Xiaohu. They find the support, but Breathe's going to go down for it. And Knight is here to do the DPS, but with Chris coming in, Xiaohu should be able to carry. Wei, the target for now, with the bomb on his head, but Xiaohu can't finish the job, and Knight's just DPSing down his opposite man. Xiaohu, 1 HP. But he's found Wei again, and there's the twisted advance. Wei survives. Crisp, level 3 true shot barrage right between the posts as Wei goes down, and Breathe re-enters the fray once again. This game is the best I've ever seen.
Okay, so last we said it was 10 kills in 5 minutes. We've just upped that even more. The ult coming through from Elk. Light has flash.
Fancy footwork. Oh, flash forced by Elk in the bottom lane. And now Knight is caught on the top side. Will the action ever end? Tarzan says no. 500 gold into his pocket.
Oh my god, there is nowhere on the Rift which hasn't been painted in a shade of red from the gore of the first few minutes of this game. Xiaohu, ridiculous amount of gold for the early game, but even he is behind Knight now. He also has 4 kills on the other side of this. This starts really with Xiaohu getting that early level 6, the first person there to hit it here on the top side of the map. Having the extra ability to have that buster shot come through is so huge. He also gets himself a red buff in this fight, which means he gets a huge amount of damage. The jump gets AoE damage down to him. It gets massively, massively convoluted after this point. The red buff burn and the slow makes things very, very difficult. And what he ends up doing is end up getting the fruit to make sure he has enough HP to survive the last few autos coming through. At least that means that Xiaohu can't kill him with a single auto and potentially get himself out to the top side of this play. That makes it somewhat even. It's really quite hard to tell who makes it out of this the best out of the two teams.
I think then Knight goes to the mid lane and Tarzan is able to punish it. Tarzan actually spotted by On here. I think at this point Knight should just be trying to leave, but they go for Crisp instead. Okay, they get the kill onto Crisp, and then he goes down. And now there's a Maelstrom in the top side, but 3 members of Weibo underneath the tower. They'll find a kill onto Bin. A bit of revenge for what Breathe's been dealing with this series.
Oh, we've got 2 kills a minute. We have over 2 kills a minute. I have never cast a game this bloody. Wei wants to keep that going.
Oh,
another ult. Light has cleansed. He's just dead to rights.
He doesn't even use the cleanse. I think rightly so. He goes down and Elk grabs his 4th kill of the game, fully cosplaying Jhin.
Okay, so, there is only... Yeah, there is only one huge victor there in that play, and that is the Jhin again. He's getting himself so much gold, and this is a problem now. For the side of Weibo, they would have been okay dealing with this Jhin beforehand, not when they have this much gold. You don't really have a hyper tank. The Alistair has that for his duration of his ult. That's not going to be something you can rely on later into the game. Whereas I think for BLG, I think they can play disengage a lot easier. They do have the Mark out, they do have themselves the slicing Maelstrom, and particularly something like a Zhonya's coming through from mid later could make that very, very powerful. However, what Weibo do have now, in terms of, that's the negatives for Weibo, the positives for them, they have a huge poke threat in this Jace. Jace is going to go towards Eclipse, and if he gets enough gold, he will get himself towards stuff like the Muramana and the opportunity later. If you hit 3 items on Breathe in a good time point, I think that maybe the poke could win out for Weibo if they play around Breathe well enough.
And again, in the draft, we said a lot of this is going to be on Breathe. He's got that answer. Let's see if he can turn it into a win for himself. I mean, honestly, I just need a second to figure out what on earth is going on in this game. Usually, you have all the time in the world in a League of Legends early game to figure out what the win cons are, where you're at in the game. This has just been so chaotic, and Light is going to get dived again.
Light might just die again. Yeah, he's got himself an E, he has a cleanse, he uses it. I think, buddy, he might just be dead.
4th shot is just so much damage at this point. Elk, 1 more auto, does the job. 5 kills for BLG's AD carry. And that might just be the first tower of the game going down as well at this rate. I mean, how often do you see a Jhin lane finishing off the first tower of the game this early in the game? I mean, it's just unheard of.
No, this is a Caitlyn thing to do. Jhin is not the best tower taker. He's better than he was. Oh, wait, does Ben even spot this coming? He does just about dodge that on that bowling ball as Tarzan was on vision. I mean, he might just die anyway. There's an ult from Tarzan.
Slicing Maelstrom available. Immediately drops that, clears the wave. Tarzan underneath the tower does take a chunk. Honestly, Bin kind of won that trade. The TP comes through from Knight as well as Light. I mean, 30 CS down. Why are we looking at this brush?
That's a great question. Maybe because we shouldn't look Light directly in the eyes. Maybe he's struggling with that right now. It's like just going like scratch the back of the head.
I feel like they were really highlighting that brush, but I'm not entirely sure why, to be honest.
Like, oh yeah, because I was wondering if the Spectre was like, oh, there's a ward here, because it feels like the kind of game where there should be a ward. Look, if there was going to be a game where someone teleports at 11 minutes behind Light in that situation from that brush, it would be this one.
It certainly would.
I'm not gonna lie, Joe. Been a bit hard making sense of this one.
Yeah.
We have a ridiculous amount of kills. I feel like in games where there are ridiculous amounts of kills and people have spiked gold, I think that favors these two teams the most out of any teams in the LPL. They are our improvisers. They are our absurdist artists of League of Legends every so often. And I think with BLG getting themselves the denial of BLG getting those 6 grubs as well, taking them away here, that's going to be another big milestone in this game.
And I have to say, this is one of those games where I know a lot of people not fans of this Jhin build. Oh, Sleep comes out from Tarzan, really committing onto Bin here. Don't know if he can finish the job. The Rocket Belt dodges the slow from the Swirl Seed. Tarzan will be left empty-handed. Breathe, however, will grab himself some tower plays. Elk with some very controversial positioning here. Doing a one-bong with the Jhin flank, but I don't know if it's going to work out for him. Look at the damage out from Breathe and from Tarzan. True Shot Barrage to finish the job. Why were you there, Elk? Wei now wants to answer, and Bin will be the one to grab the gold. Breathe, stuck in the back of the pit, has that flash available, but Wei has his own flash if he wants to try and close the gap. There is no tower for Breathe to run to. Slicing Maelstrom comes into play, and Breathe will go down. How the hell is that a positive play for BLG?
And how are we still almost on track for 2 kills a minute? These teams are just using, again, always another teleport, always another way to make a play. BLG, Weibo, they are just the teams which somehow find something deeper in the pocket. We're still within 2,000 gold. Weibo will make it a little bit closer too with that plate being taken on top side. They are yet to take a turret though, and that is going to be a bit of an issue because BLG, when they're looking to make these huge, crazy, decisive plays, having that extra positioning on the map where they can push in a wave and bot side and make sure that Weibo are losing a wave to an inner turret because you can't sit at that inner turret. You have to be somewhere else on the map. That's going to be huge. Weibo, this has been a problem the whole series. They are just a step behind BLG, and they're always losing something else in the cross map.
Knight will be able to grab a second plate in that top lane, so a lot more plates for Weibo to start with. Aside from that, obviously Tower in the bottom side. Crisp, fourth shot does a lot. Okay, yeah, Crisp using that unbreakable will, rightly so. There's been now trying to threaten in the mid lane. Light's got to be cautious. Slicing Maelstrom on cooldown for now, but it's not that long till it comes back up.
Big note as well, he's not versus a Cassante this game, which means that Bin can go towards a Protobal. This is Bursty Cannon, folks. This is not going to be the slower burner that Leandri's. If you are not in position to use that exhaust well from Chris, Bin is going to end your game. BLG get themselves another play on top. Well, no, not another play, because it's past 14 minutes. You know what? Quite hard to keep track of the timer as well in this one. Breathe gets himself a turret. That's a nice start, but Harold is going to go down to the side of BLG.
Honestly, I just love the LPL. This is my kind of League
of
Legends right here. I don't care about quality. I care about action. I care about just watching bangers. I mean, I do care about quality, but this is quality action right here. This is the best of both worlds. There's a threat onto the mid lane from Weibo. Bin slicing Maelstrom, looking for Crisp here. No unbreakable will from the previous play. And Crisp goes down, but it's a trade. Both supports as Light junked by Knight, who flies into the mix. Tarzan stunned, but skips away. And Breathe finally gets his chance. Elk down for the second time, and Breathe has gone too far to make it happen. Xiaohu trying to follow up, as is Tarzan. Health bars blinking on both sides of the fight.
Wait, hang on. That play was saved from BLG by the big Raptor.
Wait,
the big Raptor. Xiaohu dies as another one goes down. Light flashing forward for some reason. Can he catch Bin? He can.
Yes, he can. Light punishes. Bin oversteps, and Light finds his angle. Everybody on the scoreboard has a bunch of kills. Everyone.
We are 15 minutes into the game, and we have 30 kills still. 30 kills, still on track for 2 kills a minute. I have no idea how many of these fights we're even going to be able to recap because they're happening too frequently. Like, when we go forward, where do we even start? That's all right, it's towards the start of this one. Happened just in the mid lane. Chris didn't have that ultimate from that fourth shot. I want you to watch what happens when Breathe comes in the back here, because I genuinely think the big Raptor saves this team fight for BLG. So, you get the sleep coming down initially through from Tarzan after this point as Bin tries to clear out the way. Watch this. El gets hit here. He's not running a cleanse. He ends up going for this. Breathe fires the shock blast, and it hits the Raptor. He doesn't get the clean kill onto Elk. Elk then ends up at least turning around for a little bit of extra damage, and Breathe is delayed. It means he doesn't get the clean kill, and it means that BLG can actually turn around way more damage than I thought they should be able to.
Outplayed by the jungle itself. After Wei spent so much time in that top lane as well, it feels like all kinds of jungles are against Breathe in this one. 17 to 13 at the 16-minute mark. It's 3 towers taken down by BLG as they use the Herald in the mid lane. They got the first Drake as well, and the next one just spawning onto the map. Now you see Wei moving over.
We should probably talk about win conditions at some point.
Yeah.
It's been really hard to think about that so far. Right. We did talk a little bit earlier. Breathe, if he reaches 3 items on a good time, and could be a problem for BLG. I think particularly once he gets that Muramana transformed and then he gets himself the opportunity, he becomes a huge poke beast. Yeah, if you're dying on side lanes like this, that's a problem though. That's going to set his time attack a little bit more, and it's just another kill on the pile of this game.
It's brutal to see. Breathe. That's his 5th death of the game. He has got 4 kills and 4 assists though, so not as egregious as that sounds. Root comes through onto Crisp. Tarzan really trying to get that damage down, but with the Magnus Storm, he's just pulled in. And Knight free firing for the entire time. Finishes 2, and show who's next. Knight takes them to pieces. BLG own this rift.
Knight mounts up and lances himself into the enemy backline. He even flashes the Ezreal up point blank. Very rare to see that one happen. Knight, we have criticized him so much for AD carry play. We've criticized him so much for Corki play. And yet, here he is, 2k up, 9, 2, and 4. Playoffs has brought BLG to life, and sadly for Weibo, it is very much at their expense.
This is a brutal series to watch if you're a fan of Weibo, but if you're a fan of BLG, or just a fan of high-octane gameplay, then this is the game for you. Breathe caught out to start this whole sequence off, and then both teams try and respond. I feel like Tarzan kind of overcommits.
He does, because I think he realizes that Wei isn't here, and he's like, right, we have to go while the Marko's not here. The Marko could change everything. That doesn't mean you have the damage to do this. It doesn't mean you can get through the rel. Tarzan doesn't get the game-changing ultimate here. He doesn't get the sleep through. Watch how Knight just keeps going forwards. And right here, flashes the Ezreal ult. That is not something you'll see every day.
Absolutely gorgeous game so far from Knight. Only 2 deaths in a game this chaotic is kind of impressive, honestly. As Red Buff secured a 4-man defense of the Red Buff here from Weibo, just to keep their own buff.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes now. You need 4 people to defend your jungle camps. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. BLG, one of the biggest things that we've kept saying, so hopefully you cotton onto it out there, dear listener, is BLG are really good at improvising. They are really good at taking individual leads and changing the game with them. They are doing exactly the same thing again. They use the Maokai ult to make sure this tower is going to go down, and the Jhin ult just to add an insult to injury. Weibo might just get caught again.
Light is found. He's gone instantly. BLG just eradicating. This isn't a war. This is pest control from BLG. Light steps up. I thought Jhin was the Mosquito build, but it turns out it was Ezreal after all.
BLG very much the reapers of this game. Weibo exist because they allow it, and they shall end because they demand it. It has been all BLG all series, and Weibo, they're not done being punished yet.
Breathe is found. Elk with a 4th shot gets the movement speed and walks away. The Mosquito build comes out on top after all. Knight found in the mid lane though. And there's an answer for Weibo. At least they get something, but they lost their tier 2 in the bottom side. Oh, Elk just gets out.
Wait, this might be a Baron start. I think Weibo are desperate enough for this. I think they're desperate enough for this. They kill Knight. There's no teleport on him. Problem is, folks, you still have a teleport, and Bin doesn't have that ultimate, but he's still a threat. Desperation Baron, this is the best move they have. Here comes that teleport.
TP from Bin to get into the top side of the play, and Weibo just instantly peel off. They realize that, I mean, it's not even an ult on the Kennen, actually. I feel like maybe they could have stuck around.
Yeah, but when he's still 6-4 forward 2 items, and you don't have an exhaust, look, yes, Kennen with ultimate 100% ends that play. Because it's Bin with this much gold too, I think he could also still end that play without it. Bin needs no such ultimate.
You know what, Weibo? I take it back. I too fear Bin.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it'd be right to do so. So, Swell Seed Sleep comes through, Tarzan commits the flash, and they do kill Knight. I mean, if Knight teleports down there, that might even have been an in-hit push. So, credit to Weibo for fighting about just there, but...
Did you see the shutdown?
What do you got for me?
921
how much was it?
Gold? 921 gold for that kill. Xiaohu has just dropped the mid-gold gap by 1,000 off of that pick.
That is so funny. But the thing which is kind of hilarious is that Breathe was also about 2,000 gold ahead or 1,500 gold ahead at some point. Bin has also closed that by 1,000 at some point. When you get games as crazy as this, where again, we are still 2 kills a minute or just about, we're just under it now. You have so many people picking up such ridiculous amounts of gold. It is very easy for huge shutdowns to just kind of slip through the net and you not quite realize how much gold goes over to the other side and the item breakpoints which come back through. I think we're ready to fight again.
Speaking of item breakpoints, we're past the double attack speed now. Elk has an infinity edge. Any criticisms of the damage of this build are soon to be forgotten because we're way past the early stages of it. BLG start Baron off. Elk still pushing in the mid lane, matching light for the time being as Crisp tries to get in and tries to get vision. Xiaohu pushing in a side lane for the time being. TP available for him, but BLG are just gonna take this Baron. Xiaohu is staying in the bottom lane. He wants to trade an inhibitor as Chris comes into the pit. Breathe trying to get in as well. Baron taken. Elk surviving on the bottom side. Maybe a fight. Xiaohu TP'd in as well. Tarzan caught. Elk walking away. Knight 1 HP, but still alive. Tarzan trying to close the gap as Wade caught and Breathe finds the kill, but he's traded 1 for 1 now. As Tarzan just being sidestepped by Elk. Light still alive, but only 300. Baron for BLG, they lost a tower.
Just about dodge out on all the skill shots from Tarzan as well. If Tarzan tagged anyone important there, I think Weibo might have been able to run away with it. Folks, if you are not enjoying this kind of League of Legends, I do not know what to say to you. You only find this here at the LPL. Is it the cleanest? Absolutely not. Do I give a damn? Also, absolutely not. Weibo, they did give themselves a pretty decent fight there. I think it does bear mentioning too, we're 23 minutes in and there is of course a decent gold lead for BLG and they have that Baron. I still don't think this is unbeatable though in terms of a gold lead. Neither team has a hyper tank. Both teams have such ridiculous amounts of gold onto some of these carries that they can very much get through onto those important members. This game will now be about whether the very powerful Jace and the big combos coming out from Lilia 2 can get onto these carries at the right points in time. I thought maybe Weibo could have done that. It's a fantastic combo from Chris. Chris was someone who's kind of been overlooked in this series because of all the other craziness happening. He has actually had a pretty okay series in his own right. It's just sadly against BLG and On playing the way they've been doing so far.
Oh,
now
no.
we're back to life. Tarzan's dying.
He's been the hero for Weibo, but caught out. And I think Xiaohu was a part of that play as well. We see a big play on the top side from BLG during the replay. They find 2, and that is going to be such a loss for Weibo. In fact, that might even be the game if anyone missteps.
It could always, I mean, they've got the rest of the Baron buff. They do have 5 people alive. We'll go to a replay of that. This is the danger of replays in a game like this. Someone could just randomly die. It's a jump forward. They didn't have everything, and it's a fight in live.
The only word to describe this game is carnage, and Crisp on the receiving end of it. Looking like Venom right now. As BLG take 1 inhibitor, they move towards the mid lane to turn it into 2. They won't finish the game just yet, but they are damn close at just 24 minutes on the clock. And Wade does want to finish the job, but Xiaohu manages to buffer it. Tarzan trying to get into the mix once more, but he's rooted, and that's the go signal for BLG. 1 more auto will finish the job. Tarzan knocked up and taken down. Xiaohu rocket jumps away, trying to keep this game alive. The 4th shot, so close to a kill, as Bin comes in on the bottom side and takes Weibo apart. Elk is one-shotting everyone, and Breathe, the man with the counter pick, in a 1v5, and he just doesn't have what it takes. BLG eradicate Weibo in the most entertaining game I've seen in years.
Do you feel it? Do you hear it out there? It is BLG, and the rest of the LPL just shudder a little. They shiver a little. They are back, the reigning champions of the LPL. Billy Gaming are on form and march ever onwards.
Top Esports and LNG are quaking in their boots watching this series. That'll be the other first best of 5 of the top 4. And whoever wins that has to go against this indomitable BLG. My goodness, Weibo looked fantastic in their previous series. They looked like a contender. BLG laugh at the mere prospect of a contender.
This is the best Billy Gaming have played the entirety of summer. We have had questions, I have had questions, I have criticized to no end this team and individual players given what they have shown us throughout this team's recent era of strength and dominance. Today I am speechless. This team on an individual level, on a team level, they have turned up to the levels I did not expect to see them do in this place. I thought they might have to ramp up towards it after seeing how they played in the Ascension group, seeing how they played in the group stage just before that point. But honestly, if BLG are playing like this, I cannot wait to see them hit the Rift again. Now the question becomes, who fells BLG? In the past, it was JDG. JDG were BLG's kryptonite. Well, BLG took one of the best parts of that JDG roster. They took Knight. They brought in Wei as well, and there is no JDG, especially not that super team of old. I say of old of last year. To fell them this time. Who takes down this team when they look like that?
I mean, I remember Knight joining this roster, and at the very start of spring, we were all like, ooh, is it going to work out? Is it too many carries? No, there's no such thing as too many carries, especially not with a game like that. I just want to say, like, outside of the stakes, outside of the tournament, that individual game, that is going to live in my memory for a very long time. That was so much fun to watch and so much fun to cast. And I think maybe the two teams feeling they needed to make up for the early game in game number one. It was a very slow start to this series. It was a very fast end.
That might be the highest combined kill per minute game we've seen anywhere in a major region this year. I'm not going to say like out of everywhere, because I know there's some crazy games out there across the entire league. There's always going to be some wild ones out there. That is one of the most fun and entertaining games of League of Legends I have ever seen. It was messy, but I think it showcased a lot of what I like about BLG at the same time. Every time you saw one of those big plays, BLG had a pushing lane to make sure that they had a cross map if things go wrong. And if it wasn't going wrong anyway, they always had another teleport to bring in. And they had another flash on an engaged champion, having the point and click of the Alistair combo or the Maokai going in. Gave so much of that get up and go energy, which I love to see from BLG. BLG at their best are improvisers, they are dynamic. They don't always follow the set game plan, but they know exactly what the pieces each teammate can do to bring to a fight, and they bring out some fantastic montage plays like that. Any other team having 3 of those plays from that game would make their split. BLG just had like a dozen of them in about 20 minutes.
It's actually insane. The way that they do it as a team as well, I think that's the most impressive thing, because like anyone can get a TP flank and try and start a fight that way, but it's how consistently BLG make these plays happen and everyone's on board. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows where they need to be. It's fully choreographed, you know, and it's just so beautiful to witness. And like, how often do you see just like purely, kind of by chance, I think, with the way that these engages ended up happening, but how often do you see a Jhin being the one hard carrying some of the fights, the damage Elk was doing in the late game? I mean, it wasn't even the late game. That's the crazy thing. We were just so accelerated. He was on like 3.5 items. His 4th shots were doing half of a health bar at like 25 minutes into the game. That was just unbelievable to see. The one thing I will say, that one random Jhin flank, what happened there, Elk? What went through his head during that moment?
It is beyond me to question the mind of a genius. The line between genius and madness is often very thin and sometimes blurs. I think that's a great question and a great statement about the Jhin in terms of, wow, how often do we see this? This is the Jhin you probably see in scrims more often. Jhin situationally has excellent damage when you're not into a Sejuani and a Cassante and a Leona. When you're against a team like this, when you get so much gold, yeah, Jhin can actually have he can have conditionally excellent damage, and because he has that W in the ult, he can bring that from half a map away, which is incredibly powerful. When you give that to the hands of a team like BLG, who are really starting to, and we saw in this series here, really accelerating in these broken map states, what do? Knight actually walks away with more damage than him, and Ben contests with it. But yeah, Elk getting the damage down in those important moments was absolutely insane alongside the rest of the team. And again, I like that BLG did this without really dramatically changing things up throughout the series in their drafts. Like Maokai consistently, Corki consistently, Rel/Alistair consistently. It felt like just sliding in a couple of pieces, just depending on obviously how the draft actually goes. But at the end of the day, still just sticking to their standard draft pretty much throughout the series. And that's a concern for any team that's going up against them next, because you really don't know what else BLG have up their sleeves. They were not tested at all in the series. That's the hugest thing from this, because best of 5 League of Legends is not the same as any other kind of League of Legends. You have to show variety most often, and you need to show that you have more than one shot in the chamber. You need to have a whole magazine of ammunition to make sure you can make it through. But I mean, BLG just did the same thing over and over. They didn't really have to do that much. The way they played out the compositions each time were a little bit different, of course, and they showed you know, a slightly different bot lane here with the Jhin. But you know, on the whole, BLG didn't show gigantic differences across all of this, and most of this game really did just feel like BLG just hand-stiffed and used their... The hand-stiffed in some ways. I think their laning phases are really good, particularly on the side of Bin. I think what BLG showed really, really well here is this adequate use of cooldowns. Their cooldown economy was really, really good. Every time Weibo were forced to, you look here, right? They're not getting like full value out of the Lilia's kit. When BLG are looking for their big plays and their big game moments like this, they're always just getting that extra percentage out, which means they have another cooldown left. For the next part of this, they maybe in a worse fight, Knight doesn't have the Valkyrie, doesn't have the Flash. He has them both here because BLG have done the legwork to make sure they have more cooldowns to use.
Such a beautiful quadra kill there from Knight. I think he's going to end up being the MVP coming out the back of this one. I mean, it was absolute carnage. I feel like MVP really could go in multiple directions, but Knight, especially in these fights, looked so good. And Weibo, fair play to them. They tried to take it to BLG. They tried to contend. They tried different styles. Didn't work out in the end for them. They'll still continue their tournament down in the lower bracket. But honestly, I'm just living in fear now of BLG. This roster is something else.
I'm glad we get to see this from them. The entirety of summer, realistically, this is what we wanted to see from them. You know, funnily enough, both of these teams, and I think LNG can probably chuck them into the hat there too. All of these teams are teams where at various points throughout the year, whether it was, you know, for LNG and Weibo in spring and early parts of summer, or Top Esports, you know, parts of summer and maybe bits of the late stages of playoffs in spring, they have left us questioning whether they are actually as good as we think they should be. Yes, they are. They have these players. They have this strategy that they can bring through. They are very good, high-level teams. They don't always show it consistently, but if we can see it consistently over these last best of fives, where it matters the most, I don't care anymore. If they end up bringing it through into the important games and they can bring that through to potentially Worlds after that point, I don't care what the rest of the year looked at. Just show me more of this. This is great.
Welcome to the official Top Esports fan club. That's how I've felt for the last 5 years now. You just kind of have to get used to it, don't you? But BLG, you know, taking that away, and I think sort of taking that mentality with him. Fantastic stuff from BLG. Turns out they can turn it on when it comes to playoffs. And I honestly, LNG or Top Esports, I think whoever wins that next series, it's going to be an incredible matchup against BLG. LNG, the only team that managed to beat BLG during Group Ascend. Top Esports, I think, being touted by a lot of people as one of the favorites for the whole tournament, with 10 getting MVP for the split. I honestly think there are so many incredible matchups ahead of us in this top four. We are only just getting started, and I just couldn't enjoy it anymore.
Before this series today, I was really questioning who should be winning this entire tournament and who should be going to Worlds. Because, reminder folks, in terms of the teams that can make it through to the Worlds, we've just talked about 4 of them. Of course, there is BLG, Weibo, and then, of course, on the other side, and the 2 teams left in, we have LNG and we have Top Esports. Then we also have NIP and JDG down, waiting in the regional qualifiers as well. Before we saw this kind of the series come through, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm probably thinking that the actual winner of the split's quite undecided, so that means it's really difficult to determine who's going to go as first or second. BLG probably go as second seed. There's a lot of different implications there. I think now BLG have now put themselves front and center and said, look, we qualified as first seed. You can argue whether they were good enough to do that with some of their gameplay coming through, but with this series, they are now, for me, favorites to win this. We'll see what happens tomorrow, where the first best of 5 from Top Esports and LNG come through, but I think we have drastically changed the conversation with only one best of 5 here. That is the nature of starting playoffs. LPL playoffs changes opinions like that so quickly. I
agree completely. And you know, LNG and Top Esports, they have their opportunity to challenge that statement tomorrow, and I fully expect that to be a quality series. But to be honest, to really challenge that statement, I feel like either Top or LNG really have to come out swinging tomorrow. They have to have a pretty dominant series to really look like they can challenge BLG. That said, obviously, BLG's beaten the 4th seed today. I do think BLG were the favourites coming in today. But even I didn't think they were that favourite compared to Weibo. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how the rest of the bracket's going to go down. I will say as well, just one of the really, really positive things, I think Wei had an absolutely fantastic day today. I think On had an absolutely fantastic day. You know, we always talk about the carries from this team, but I think that On and Wei, the way they played that map, the way they linked up as a pair and like controlled things, was absolutely beautiful to witness.
So at the start of the day as well, we kind of made this comparison between Wei and Tarzan coming into these teams and asking the question, well, okay, you are looking to solve your flaws, but also are you going to keep your strengths? BLG, yes, I think they have. I think that when you look at how Wei has influenced this team, Zell gets the MVP and absolutely deserves to. Fantastic influence from him. But the fact that BLG are still the snap initiation team, which will catch you off guard with the quick teleports and the quick flash in from a Maokai or a Rel or an Alistar or something like that, and everyone is on the same page while they're doing it, that is so crucial. I would have hated to see that version of BLG not come back, because that was such an important part of how they played the game. They are an incredible, decisive, punishing team. They give you like this, hey Cash, you have like a moment to make sure that you can get yourself into a safe spot or respond readily for them. And a lot of the time, they couldn't do that. I mean, in this kind of series, you see how that style can really work out.
I mean, this play from Elk kind of set the tone for the rest of the game, didn't it? The dancing grenade to finish off the 2v2. It was a good play from Chris, but not good enough. And then Wei gets involved in that bottom side, sets Elk up to take over the rest of the game.
What an insane game. Folks, you're not going to see many like this. Ever, really. This is a once in a blue moon kind of game. 2 kills a minute between top teams in a major region. It's rare. It's really, really rare. And it's not bad League of Legends either. I think there is sometimes a misconception that loads of kills and scrappy games is bad League of Legends. Sometimes it is just a very different style of win condition when you realize actually you can win a game by making a game scrappy, making sure that the Tristana can't go into a side lane, making sure that the top lane matchup can't get kind of stabilized as well. The Jace is never going to get to 3 items. You can fight for cooldowns, you can fight to deny people like their stable map setup. If you keep fighting like this and you get the better of those fights, of course it's good League of Legends. And BLG, they ran completely through and ran away with it. Yeah, and honestly, if you just rate your hands versus your opponent, this can just be the best way to win the game. I mean, look at IG back in 2018. The way that they won the game was just outlaning everyone, and that's okay to not have absolutely crazy macro if you can just destroy everybody. Why not? BLG, I mean, putting the destroy in destroy today. Anyway, that's the end of our series already. Let's take a look at today's results. Great little segue there from me. It's BLG. Yay. 3-0 over Weibo. Clean. Well, okay, is it clean? Well, dominant. We'll say dominant. Just they put the dominant in dominant, Joe. That's what they do. As Weibo, I mean, I think that Tarzan still had a pretty decent series. Was he the better jungler today? No, actually, I don't think he was. I think Wei was still fantastic, but Tarzan at least giving some shining light. I think the rest of the players in Weibo, though, in both laning and in terms of their understanding of where they're safe on the map, that's going to be something they really need to address before their next best of 5. Otherwise, they will be seeing themselves likely going out against the loser of this series here. That will be our other kind of top of that other leg of the playoffs bracket, LNG versus Top Esports.
Certainly will. That is going to be an incredible series. I'm anticipating 5 games right there. LNG, the favorite in terms of seeding. I think Top Esports, an absolute contender though, and I'm excited to see what they can bring to the table. I feel like both teams are going to have a lot up their sleeves, because that could be a long best of 5. Absolute quality rosters there. But that is going to be it from us. I've been Munchables. I've been joined by Nymera. It's been our absolute pleasure to bring you this series.
Nymera.
He certainly does. He puts the hap in hap good. Or the I should have gone with good. Never mind.
Get that next time.
Yeah, fantastic. Game number 3. An absolute pleasure to cast. We'll be there in chat tomorrow to watch LNG versus Top Esports. But until then, we'll see you in Shop Select.